Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. If there's anyone present who is recording or planning to record at this meeting, would you please indicate? Welcome back. Good to see you. All right. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of December 6th. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 6th, 2016.
Second.
Okay. Anybody have any concerns? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Unanimous. Okay. This will be a time for input from the public. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee at this time? Welcome.
I second the motion.
It's been a while. Karen DiDonato, 4 Archambault Way, Chelmsford, Mass. I just wanted to come tonight because I watched the school committee meeting 2 weeks ago, and the school department had presented a plan to add an additional health requirement of 5 credits to the graduation requirement. Personally, I'd like to see you get a little community service in there too for a requirement, but that's for another time. I was, first and foremost, I want to put statistics aside and just talk to you from a parental perspective. For anybody who doesn't know me, I've put 4 kids through the Chelmsford public school system. And I really want to look at this from more of a common sense as opposed to statistics of what do other towns do and what's the requirement and everything else. Without the health and well-being of your students, mentally, emotionally, and physically, they're never going to succeed academically. And I think everybody understands that. You don't need statistics to prove that. You don't need statistics to understand that the kids aren't getting enough sleep, that they're stressed, they have anxiety, they have lack of eating and good exercise habits. They can't study and they can't learn if they're exhausted. Now, I don't know about you, chimes have really changed, as I'm sure all of you know. Has anybody ever remembered the last Sunday that you sat home, had Sunday dinner, never got to go shopping, nothing ever happened, you relaxed? Doesn't happen anymore. Everybody's out, they're out on activities, they're shopping, they're doing this, they're doing that. There is no rest and relaxation. Times have changed. Work doesn't leave people. I mean, our parents used to come home at the end of the day. They couldn't stay at work. There were no computers. There were no phones. Life didn't follow them, but it's following everyone now. And I really think we need to give the kids the skills that they're going to need to be able to deal with society the way it is today. And I have been an advocate of the health department for years. The way I look at it is, if the CHS principal, the health curriculum coordinator, the entire CHS health department has recognized a need and proposed a plan to provide additional education and support to your students, how can you even question it? How can you question the fact that these professionals spend the better part of 6 hours a day, 180 days a year with your kids? I can guarantee that is much more than any parent spends with their child. I never got to spend that amount of time with my kids when they were in school. It's the nature of the beast. It's the way society is today. Kids are either in school, they're at after-school activities, they're working, they're doing homework on their cell phones, computers, in front of a TV. I mean, there is no downtime. No one sees them more than the school professionals. And the health department has come before you because they've identified the need and put forth a plan to provide continued education with tools and the knowledge that they believe these kids need. Mostly because the world has changed and it is so totally different. Given the fact there's no health requirement past the 9th grade, I encouraged all 4 of my kids to take the health elective reality check. And all 4 of them did. Because I knew, as a parent, that they were getting nothing after the 9th grade. And reality check, if anybody's ever sat in on it, is exactly what the name is. It's check into reality. It goes over a lot of the social problems that are going on today. It's one of the best classes out there, and it deals with real life. It's not book life. Book life is your math and your science and everything else. But reality check and your health department puts together curriculum that deals with real life. Ask yourself this: can you honestly say that you're ready to send them off to college without any additional education regarding their physical, social, and emotional health since 9th grade? Can you honestly say that all these kids are ready to handle nutrition decisions, relationships, social media, time management, substance abuse, which we know is huge these days? Can they recognize the difference between comfortable amounts of stress and what's true anxiety? I mean, we heard you talk last week about how stressed you are with your AP classes and how much sleep you get. The health department gives you tools that will help you try to cope with a lot of these. When was the last time anybody spoke to them about sexually transmitted diseases? Anything that regarding social media, whatever you post is going to follow you. 9th grade, that's the last time any of them had any kind of a requirement. So you've got 3 more years and you're sending them off to college on their own without any type of health-related requirement that's bringing them up and helping them to learn and giving them the tools to cope. I could go on and on and on, but I think you get my point. The bottom line, I'm asking you to put your trust in your academic professionals, give them the time and the tools that they need to prepare your kids for life after high school, wherever that's going to take them. Help your students succeed academically by helping them to address their mental, physical, and emotional well-being. If they're not healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, they can't study. They cannot succeed academically. Any parent who's concerned about adding such an important class as a graduation requirement cannot possibly know the stresses of their kids today and how to provide them with these coping mechanisms. And I have a lot of faith in the school department and the health department to bring forth a plan to you guys to be able to give this to the kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something now, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
You know, Karen, I just want to let you know, I appreciate what you just said, and I couldn't agree with you more. I have a son that's a junior in high school. My daughter just graduated. And not only is social media so stressful, you know, back when we were young, you know, if you got in an argument with a friend or two or had a disagreement with somebody in school, it kind of was within that small circle. Today, you get in an argument with someone, there's a good chance that the entire school knows exactly what's going on within a matter of minutes. And I think that's really stressful. I can remember my daughter and my son still today, you know, talking about, you know, the social media and the impact that it's having. I also think today is so stressful on our kids because of academics, right? Before, it used to just be local. You competed locally to the areas you went to get to college. Today, it's international. You know, there's 3,000 slots for 60,000 applications for BC. You know, same thing with Northeastern and BU. So the kids, they're studying even harder. The bar that is being placed is even higher. So I think if there's going to be one level of investment that we invest in, it's certainly health ed, because it means so much more than when we were young, just understanding the human body or maybe, you know, how to, you know, hygiene or anything like that. It's much, much bigger than that. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a serious concern right now, and I think it's something that certainly I want to continue to look at. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Your timing is excellent. I will entertain a motion to take item number 8 under new business, which is the change in the graduation requirement out of order because the people who are going to be dealing with that are here, and we do them a favor and take it up now if they want.
I make a motion to change item number 8, graduation requirement for health ed, and move it to the first item on the list.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any abstention or negative vote? No, unanimous. Would you like me to invite them up?
Sure.
Are we going to do?
Okay, if the people from the health department would like to come up, we'll get going on this.
If I could just for one
Yes.
for 1 second, that's my fault. Steve is coming tonight, but when we looked at the agenda, I knew we had 2 presentations ahead of time, so I told him this probably wouldn't make it on until closer to 8 o'clock. So he is coming, but the rest of the staff is already here. So he obviously supports this and made this recommendation last time. I don't have a problem, not holding everyone else up if we want to talk about it, and we'll see how quickly he gets here. I don't want to hold everyone else up.
Yeah, and if they finish before, we could text him and say, have fun.
Right.
Obviously, we had an opportunity to hear from you folks last time. Is there anything you'd like to say in an introduction before we open up for our own questioning or discussion? Would you like to say anything first, or we just go ahead? Whatever you want.
Hi, I'm Katie Sims, the PE Health and Family Consumer Science Department Coordinator. Thank you for having us again tonight. We just wanted to come to kind of support what we were here for a couple of weeks ago. We know that there were some questions that came about. We wanted to come here today to see if we answered those questions, and then again, if you have any more questions, we're certainly happy to answer them on anything related to this graduation requirement that we're asking for, the additional 5 credits that students would have to take at some point during their junior or senior year for 1 semester. So if you have any questions, or does anyone else want to add anything?
A motion on the floor before we start that? Yeah, how about I make a motion, so.
Could you help?
Motion to approve, and then we'll have discussion after.
Motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor of the motion?
Well, first we have discussion. That, you have to have a motion on the floor to discuss.
Yeah.
So that, I know Mike has questions, so we'll just move right into it. Go ahead, Mike.
Pretty standard operating procedure.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you for coming back, and I'm going to preface my remarks by saying I really do appreciate the time that you guys have put into this proposal and the time that you spend with the kids. My objection to this does not so much lie in the proposal in and of itself to give the kids kind of a booster shot. And I understand that this is not something new. In fact, it was in the school improvement plan from a couple of years ago to add the reality check course. What I'm concerned about is that we're not looking at this globally, and that my concern is about how kids are going to make this fit into their schedules. For the most competitive ranked schools, the expectation for an applicant would be 4 years of a language, 7 to 9 AP classes, and most of the kids who are doing something like that are also going to do 4 years of band or chorus or orchestra or something like that. When you put that load together, I'm not convinced that it's going to work scheduling wise. That's one thing, and I'd like to have a little bit of a conversation, and Tom, maybe you can help out a little bit about how that exactly would work, because especially junior year, what you're looking at is a couple of free classes, right? That could be that are basically elective classes, and while you can be picking up some AP classes there already in junior year, you're getting very tight, especially if you add in a 4-year track like band or orchestra. I guess one concern would be that you can guarantee that kids could get that class to fit into their schedule that year. Mike, can you talk to that first?
Sure. So pull that a little closer. Steve and I were just looking at the program studies earlier, knew that was a concern. And so when you look at it, junior year, there are 40 credits that are required for students. So you have a window of 30 credits. Sophomore year, I think there's a window of 15 credits for electives. And then senior year, there's a window of 50 credits for electives. So a couple things, and it may not be the most welcoming answer. However, things like band and chorus and orchestra 40 credits, that's a choice. To do all, right, so all 4 years, that's a choice. They need to take 10 credits of a fine performing art. They don't need to take 40. So that's one component of it. And that's true with any other elective too. So for example, if I wanted to go to school for an art program, right, I need to take 4 years of art. I have to make sure I do honors art portfolio. I have to do AP art, whether it be 2D drawing, etc. And then again, same example would be true for someone who's interested in engineering or computer-based sciences. So you see where I'm going with the examples of the illustrations. Regarding the required courses, as early as sometimes sophomore and then junior year, your English, your math, your science, so core courses that you're already taking, those can be AP courses. So you're already looking at like 4, I know there's some prereqs involved, right? So if you take AP 1 sophomore year, AP US History 1 sophomore year, junior year would be
World.
No, World, US 1,
World, and
US
then
2.
US,
I
okay,
think I just
yeah.
said that incorrectly. But if you take US 1, your sophomore year honors, you can take AP US your junior year. Same with like a chemistry. So it's probably 4 or 5 years now that we've made bio predominantly majority of our freshmen, so then they take chem sophomore year. They can do bio and chem AP their junior year if they chose, or split 1 year.
Well,
and
they
then the other.
can't. That's what I'm saying, right? That if they do AP Bio and AP Chem junior year,
Yep.
and they've got a band or other 4-year program, then there is no elective left that year. That means they have to push this elective in, and frankly, if you're talking about a senior, it means it needs to be done first semester, senior year. One of the things my kitchen cabinet came up with on this is it realistic to let this ride until second semester senior year? Because the seniors simply aren't there that long. If we're really committed to this being a graduation requirement, what we're talking about is doing it in one of those 3 semesters, right? Let me just list a couple of other objections, and I'll get your feedback on them, or points, I guess, that came up. One is that PE requirement in sophomore year sometimes gets deferred into junior or senior year, especially when you're double tracking math. That's the year that you're going to double up on math, right? And so
Sophomore year would be the year.
sophomore is the year it doubles up. So, and we talked a little bit about this last time around, was that, you shouldn't, this elective is being proposed for junior and senior years, and so you wouldn't expect to have to look at implications for sophomore year, but the way that it works is that sometimes the PE gets pushed out, and it just is one more thing that you have to take care of in those last couple of years. The other thing is that the proposal itself doesn't say that kids are going to take reality check. It says they'll take either reality check or the power of choice. And a close reading, and Karen will be happy to hear this, that reality check now leads to a class-generated community service project. So there's your community service. However, if you're a kid who is loaded up academically, you might defer into the nutrition class, which on paper looks a lot more straightforward, a lot less work. Okay, so. Yeah.
Sorry.
Please.
Sorry to jump in there.
No. That's what I'm looking for.
I was just a little confused because I don't know. I'm not sure what proposal you have, but we haven't. That has not been decided on moving forward on what we're going to do. So we were going to wait to have the graduation requirement decided on first to have it accepted, and then we were going to have a discussion with Steve and the health teachers and figure out what the course was going to be. It wasn't going to be reality check necessarily or nutrition. Does that make sense?
It kind of does.
Okay.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I guess I'd have preferred it to be a little bit more defined when it came in front of us.
Sorry.
Actually, the reason why it's not defined is because we were asked to not define it, because what we did is we came up with 3 different scenarios. One of the scenarios was to keep the 2 type electives. The other scenarios were to come up with an entirely different course using those two courses, putting them together. And the third scenario,
I think what we were waiting on was that it's all going to be a numbers game, right? It's going to depend on the freshman class and how many sections they're going to take up, and then with the juniors and seniors. So between the three the three full-time health educators and how many sections the grades will require would really drive if is there room to make a brand new course and keep electives? Is there, we're going to have to make the two electives one and put them together and make them a new course. So it depended a lot on if this got approved and the numbers of how many sections for the younger kids and for the older students.
and can I just speak to one of the other
Please.
points? The question about will there be enough time in the second semester senior year? To be honest with you, I would imagine we would keep it the same that we have it now. So in the current reality check elective, and again, this course would not be reality check as is. It would have to grow. But how we do reality check currently is in second semester, we have a project called Where Are You Going? And many of our students really benefit from this project. In the fall semester, we do the Where Are You Going project early in the semester. And the Where Are You Going project is giving the juniors and the seniors time to work on what they are doing after high school. Now, that means something different for all of our students in reality check. What it means for some kids who haven't even gotten started, it's a booster shot. It's a jump start for them. What it means for our kids they're kind of in the middle of the process, it gives them some time with us, with the guidance staff. The guidance staff comes in, utilizes the time within our reality check classes, and it gives them time to meet one-on-one with their guidance counselor. And for our many AP students who take reality check, they love it because many of them are further ahead in the process, but it gives them just what they don't have, time. So what we do in the second semester is we move that project to the end of the semester because the seniors are finished with that whole process. And so when reality check meets in the second semester, and this is what we would do with a required course, is still that Where Are You Going project really is valuable, and it continues to grow year after year. Those kids, the juniors, will do the Where Are You Going project after the seniors leave. So it really, it doesn't, we just shift the timetable of the course.
Okay, I thank you. I'm looking for a discussion, and I think it's valuable to kind of understand where you're coming from. I do want to circle back around to the idea that band is an elective. It's simply not an elective, not for a certain subgroup of kids, and I'm arguing, I think, tonight from a particular point of view, and that's the high achievers, the ones who are trying to take 7, 8, 9 AP classes in their time, and the ones who are looking to get into the the top tier of competitive schools. That's not optional for them. They need to have that. They need to have that background. They need to have 4 years of languages. Just because we only require 3 doesn't mean they can stop after 3. They need to have 4 to be competitive at those schools. And so to put roadblocks in their way, I think is not helpful for them. And I don't disagree that if we were starting kind of de novo in a new world, this would be one of the classes that I would want on the schedule because I think it is helpful. I think the vast majority of kids, this is where they get a lot of that. But I mean, I don't think it's necessary for every kid. And when you start making it a graduation requirement, you are saying it's necessary for every kid. And then I think you have a responsibility to think about how it works out for every kid's schedule. Not for the average kid, not for most kids, but for every kid. And I am still concerned that there's simply not enough time in the schedule. There is one other thing, and Jay, I think you saw it this afternoon, and I don't know that any of you can speak to it. There appears to be some confusion about what the graduation requirements actually are. In particular, the program of studies released the last 2 years says that you have to have five credit hours of a practical art. As far as I can tell, that adjustment was never voted by the school committee. When we adopted the Mass Core requirements, we adopted them as presented, according to the minutes. And going back and looking at the presentation, it said only that you needed 10 credits of art. That could be fine or performing or practical. Somewhere along the way, this additional 5 credits of practical art got inserted. The upshot being everybody is being told they have to take a business class. So for the kids that I'm talking about, the ones who are going to do 4 years of band or orchestra or chorus, clearly they've already covered their 10 credits in arts. It's the 5 credits in a practical art that might not be on their path forward. So they have to take a detour, and it kind of makes the logjam that much more acute. Unless we can find documentation that the school committee has approved the 5 credits of practical arts, I'd like to see that removed from the program of studies. And I think that would go a long way towards making sure that people don't get jammed up.
Yeah, I'm happy to look into that. When did this come up today?
Oh, a couple of emails.
Oh, all right.
You were copied.
I'm not up on them, but I'd be happy
Right.
to take a look at it. So it's an issue about, it's in the course of studies?
It suddenly appeared in the 15-16 program of
Course
studies.
of studies?
Is it okay if I comment?
Sure, please.
As far as I know, and I'd have to look at our old programs that are in the vault at the school, the practical art requirement's been there since I've been a department head and then coordinator, so that would be 2011-12. Al might even be able to speak to.
I was going to say, it's been a topic for a long time, but I'm pretty sure it's been there.
Yeah, it's been there for quite some time, and it's not just business classes. There are other classes that fall under practical arts.
Early childhood is apparently heavily subscribed these days because of that. When the Mass Core requirements were adopted, they were adopted as presented. So I guess I'd like to see some kind of answer to the question of whether or not kids need to take 5 credits of practical arts.
When did you vote on that? Because I don't think that was.
That was the 2012-13 school year.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and see what.
Well, yes, we have the minutes for that. We don't have minutes prior to that I'm aware of.
I think that vote was more specific to adding an additional 5 to the fine and performing arts in math.
The thing is, the program of studies for that year and the subsequent year say only that you need the 10 credits in arts. There's no mention of an additional 5 in practical arts.
Okay.
I'm happy, I can talk to Steve about it, we can do some digging on it. I wasn't prepared for that tonight.
Just don't tell me my son didn't grab it.
I have a question, and I'll explain why. Does the 5 credit writing course exist anymore? I don't think so, but I want.
Which writing for college or writing for high school? We have
Either one of them. It was people had to take 15 credits of English that year.
Oh, I know what you're referring to. So for incoming freshman students, we have the 10 credits of English that everyone has to take.
Yeah.
And if they're level 3, as an additional built-in intervention for those students for additional supports, we have reading, half a year of reading for high school, half a year of writing for high school.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that it was originally for everybody.
Right.
It was.
Okay.
You took it either your freshman
Yeah.
or sophomore year.
Yeah, and it was felt to be a good thing. I mean, what could be more valuable than to strengthen writing skills? But everybody didn't need it.
Right.
And that's why I had some comments last time we talked along the same line. So that's a concern that I have. I've decided, because I really agonized over this, because I can see both ways. I'm going to support, when it comes time to vote, putting this in, because we're in a critical period. Whether this course is going to be the answer or not, we've got to try things. And so I'm going to support it. But I would like to believe that people will track and see if the same kind of phenomenon takes place. That, we put in writing for everybody because it's we thought it was a great thing, and everybody didn't need it, and so it doesn't exist that way anymore. And I think there are probably other instances where that's been the case. So that's my 2 cents. I want, if it passes, we've got to watch and see the implications, because Mike's raised some very good points, and in a fairly short time we'll see, and we can't hesitate. If it is a major problem, we can't hesitate on the other end. That's all. Any other discussion?
I had a brief conversation this afternoon with one of our student reps, Manjari. She has 4 exams tomorrow. She also was invited to go caroling tonight, which she is not doing so she can be here.
I actually did go, but I booked it out early so I could come here.
You see what I mean? These are choices that they shouldn't have to, make. They should be able to enjoy some, and balance. Not that she doesn't have balance. She's probably as perfect as they come in the world. But there are a lot of students who can't do that.
It's got a lot more pressure now.
Yeah. Because really, if you don't get into one of the top tier schools, we will all be very disappointed.
If I don't show up, that's why.
But I think that, and you agreed, there would be a place in your life for this class.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Thank you.
Could I quickly add to, is that all right? I stand on the other side of the fence. I feel very strongly about this class. I appreciate Karen's sentiments that she shared. It's math core encouraged is one thing. Just about every district, competitive districts, Lexington, Concord, etc., those high schools have 2 half-year requirements. Those kids are okay. They go off to college, competitive colleges, and they do well. My other point is, are there some kids who don't need it? Yeah, maybe right now. They got, kind of as Karen was saying, they have their safety net right now. They got their parents, they got their friends, then they go off to college. And they are kept, in a very competitive program. Maybe they lack the resiliency, the grit, the time management. Maybe they have been so much under their parents' thumb that they've never touched alcohol. I'm not encouraging that either, just saying. And then this is their first exposure to an environment where they can make the decision, I'm going to party tonight, and then the next day, and so on. It's also important to remember, and I don't have the stats in front of me, that each year in college, more and more students either drop out or need to extend their years in college because they were not socially prepared for the pressures that college presents. And in 4 years, only 25% of all students in college graduate in 4 years. So I think that's another important stat. Don't hard quote me on that. I'd have to cite my source. But, and I know in anecdotal conversations with our students at the high school and counselors, just out of curiosity, if you could fit this in the schedule, would you want to? And a lot of them say, yeah, they would want that break. For me, I think it's extremely advantageous for our kids. Personally, I do think that every student could benefit from the skills and the information and the resources that are provided, because sometimes those conversations aren't happening at home with the best families and the best kids. I think everyone would benefit strongly, and I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
I'd love to hear from Mr. Chairman. I'd love to hear from Steve Murray.
So thank you for having us. We also did a sophomore success program at our guidance counselors, our health teachers, I know you talked about that already, and to look at sophomores and seeing what things are plaguing them and what things are they're struggling with, and there's kind of different units we're going to do through the whole year. And we surveyed 233 did a response, and most said they're really stressed. The anxiety, stress, organization, then the pressures that go along with that. And that was just done last week, last couple of weeks with our health teachers. And it was really pretty much right across the board. The kids are talking about the stress they feel, the homework, the things that piled on, things they have to do outside of school, things we're asking to do inside school. And that's our sophomores. And that's only going to escalate as they get to junior and senior year when they start looking at, all right, what's my next stage of my life? What's that going to look like? And then where am I going to go? And what skills am I going to need when I get there? So we're trying to do what we're doing already, but as I said earlier, we're trying to reach more kids out there for grades 11 and 12. And I think that's important.
Oh, I did want to mention too, when our kids apply to college, as I'm sure some of you know, we send a school profile as well. Every school sends a profile of their school. It basically explains our grading system, how our kids do in SAT and AP scores, explains how our leveling system. It has a chart of our how we calculate our GPA, but it also has our graduation requirements. And the one thing I've learned from going to different New England and National Association workshops is that the colleges, that's like their Bible for every school, and they track every school. And if they see that, you know, a 5 credit health requirement is what we require as a high school, that's something that's not held against them either. So I think that might be helpful to the conversation as well. That's, you know, colleges don't penalize based on what we make sure we want our kids going on with. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Steve, you were in front of us not too long ago, and we were discussing the statistics that are in our school systems today, Chelmsford, about the kids that have emotional issues that sometimes leave the school, they go to the hospital, they get taken away in an ambulance, God forbid. Can you talk a little bit more about those statistics? Could you refresh our memory, or is that a fair question?
Sure. As of last March, we didn't finish it. Last of March, we had a little over 51 hospitalizations, and those were, I think, 37 were non-repeats, so we had maybe 12 people who were repeating. We also had 28, we ended up at 32 initial evaluations for special education at grades 10 and 11, that's a long time, and that shows that there's some issues there. We also had a resiliency class. We went from one class, resiliency, to how kids can persevere and show grit. Now we're at three sections. We had one student assistance program. Now we're at 3 classes there, and so we're increasing all these ways which we can support and help kids. But what can we do? What can we do in our classes right now, as opposed to adding more programs? And that's what we're looking for here. We have people who have been doing it. They've been doing it to a small group of kids who choose 11th and 12th grade for their electives. But we have the skills, we have the people. Let's use it and broaden that.
You know, just want to say a couple of comments. First of all, sometimes when you have to accomplish a goal or a task, and you have 10 choices and there's only 8 slots, you start with what's the most important. I don't know where I'm going to finish, but I know this has to be number 1. And I think when this school committee talks and we hear from the community, we always talk about what's the most important part of our job. And it's easy, the safety and the well-being of the children, period. Everything else kind of gets built on top of that, but that's number 1. I don't know what can be more important than making sure our kids are socially, mentally fit to take the next step. And I just think when you look at the things that are happening in this country today, when you talk about obesity, that it's increased probably 20% in the last 25 years within the ages of the high school and middle school. When you talk about the stress that these children have every single day, it's not like when we were young that one health class was okay. I'm really listening to you, and I'm saying, geez, you know, should we be talking about this even more? Should we be talking about even more credits for this? Should we be talking about adding other resources to support you? Because I know this. I know you, ladies and gentlemen, you're in the weeds every single day. You touch our children every single day and understand what they need. So if you're here in front of us today to talk about obesity, social and emotional issues, sleep deprivation, how comfortable are they, especially today, you know, Kids have to be comfortable in their shell. 20 years ago, if they weren't comfortable, they were quiet about it, and that's not healthy. But today, they're, can they be more comfortable with who they are as a person? The social media that's taking place today. We talk about sexually transmitted diseases and what to be prepared for. Do they really understand that? So these are issues that our children are facing every day. I'm talking to teachers and people that shepherd our children on a daily basis. You're in the weeds every day. Stresses of family life. I mean, I've been coaching our kids now for 13 years, and I have to tell you that the stories that I hear about their life with their parents, we have kids that their parents don't even shepherd them, for whatever reason. They're living with friends or family or, in some instances, guardians. That's tough stuff for our kids. And added to the pressures that we already described, I support this 100%. I want to make sure you have the most resources you can. And as our chairman said, who always, I got to say, that's why Al's the best. He's always leading. You are, Al. I got to say it the way it is, Al. He jumped right out in front and said, I support this for these reasons. And he talked about how much he thought about it. And I just want you to know that I also share those sentiments. I want to make sure you have all the resources you need. This is serious stuff when you talk about the health and the well-being and the safety. This is safety of our kids. And you're there every single day. If we can't ask you, then how do we do it? And as far as slotting it, you slot the most important, and wherever everything else falls, you'll figure it out later. But what is the most important? So thank you, guys, and I support this 100%.
I just add one other thing. In Rotary recently, we've been giving money to Community Teamwork, Wish Project, and all of those. Community Teamwork dealt with, which bridges people who have been in a state of poverty and gives them major appliances and things like that so that they can make it when they go out on their own. We were expecting to talk about Lowell and everything. They dealt with over 1,000 families in Chelmsford this last year. So it was, over and above this is part of the whole emotional tension kind of thing that in a lot of households, there are financial issues. And, periodically when these people from these agencies come in and tell you the numbers that are in Chelmsford, it brings us back to reality. So I think that it's not without the money factor either. Any further questions, discussion?
You know what? I'll just say I think Tom, your analysis of other districts is compelling. If Lexington can do it, we can do it.
I think it's all been said. I plan on supporting it.
All right. Did you want to add anything before we vote? Everybody else set?
I think
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of this time of year, and to take time for us to hear us, I think that's so important, and we're really appreciative of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
We gotta get that door fixed. So they were on the hallway.
Okay.
Tom still has to do his presentation first.
Yeah, we'll start with that. Right. Oh.
I don't know if the CHS reps have an announcement.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're jumping around a little.
Students,
He's the person
excuse
who
me,
do it.
because we took things out of order, we skipped over you. Would you like to fill us in on what's going on besides caroling and tests?
They thought they were. They thought they'd pass.
Really? No,
No?
not much. This is the roughest week of school, probably.
The roughest?
I think so.
Oh, it's the best week of school
Oh,
right now.
okay. All right.
You're obviously not taking as many
All
AP
right,
courses.
buddy.
Hey, classes are winding down. Teachers are stopped teaching. No
Oh, okay.
tests.
What's up,
Hey.
you?
I think the wrestling team won the Thingsboro tournament, and a couple of people won championships, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember who they were.
I don't remember either.
Wow.
How many points did they win?
A lot.
Maybe 60 points.
What did you do, Mr. Nealon?
Undefeated.
So far.
Captain.
No,
Thank you.
no, it's great to see the success that that the teams are off doing. I wasn't able to make it to the to the hockey game the other night and the dedication of the locker room and everything, but it's great to see the support for the Fletcher family and in Jason's memory, and also for the money that was raised and the work that was done to improve our facility. That's great.
Oh, they're also sorry. That just reminded me. They're also opening Madam Queen's boutique soon.
Oh,
or they're
yes.
planning on it, which is nice. They're gonna put coats, scarves, anything with Madam Queen's essence.
I got a little tour of that today, so.
Did you?
Thank you.
Anyone in the community who has,
Is it true they have like 3 full racks of clothes?
they have quite a few, and they've got a space down in, I think, the bottom floor they found.
Science room.
Science
Yep,
wing.
that they're going to start storing the stuff. So anyone who has old, prom dresses or such, or jackets, young men's
I know they were looking for a lot
jackets.
of men's clothing.
Yeah, they
too.
only have one men's jacket right now,
Yeah.
a dress coat. So they would like those donations. Shoes, they've got a lot of shoes. It's touching. She would have approved.
Any good news?
We do. A couple of things. We've obviously been having our winter concerts. They've been wonderful. I hope people have had a chance to go by, whether your children are in school or if you could at least stop by the high school one that was last week. It was unbelievable. The kids are having a good time. Another piece of good news is if you have a chance to go by McCarthy Middle School, they have their McCarthy Middle School band in the morning, and I'm playing on Friday morning, so I have an option of a triangle, tambourine, or perhaps like a small little horn, so I don't know what
Would
that's going to
excel
look
at
like.
the
It's going to be
tambourine.
unbelievable.
I'd take the triangle personally.
You think the
but
triangle,
can't mess up-
tambourine?
can't mess up the triangle.
Closest to a cowbell.
We need more cowbell.
More
though.
cowbell.
More cowbell.
So I think I could do that. But if you have a chance, go by McCarthy Middle School in the morning. They greet the students. It's very exciting. They enjoy coming into school, as well as at Parker Middle School.
What time is that?
So at 8:10. I was told to show up at 8:10. I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock. Parker Middle School, they've been having their drummers in the morning, welcoming the students, getting them
nice.
excited. So there's some fun stuff that happens in the school. It's a nice way to be greeted.
I know. Is this like a get out of school jail card or something?
I can come get you.
I said.
If you can dismiss us,
If
Dr.
we can get out of
Hirsch, I'm
school,
fine with
we'll
that.
be there.
Okay.
We know a guy.
I know.
You know, yeah?
And then just one other piece of good news. I spoke about it at the last meeting, our resiliency group, and it's funny that we were talking about that group tonight. They were able to collect almost like, it was called like, it was almost like a Toys for Tot kind of piece. And what they did is they went to Children's Hospital to deliver these toys. And I was fortunate enough, Mrs. Blakely, who's one of the advisors, sent me her quick video. It's very quick. And this is them delivering, if you can just take a look at that, delivering all those toys and having a good time. I just want to make sure you could hear it.
Yes.
Well, now we can't hear it, so. Just some fun pictures.
It's not playing.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah, it's playing on my computer. It's great. You can all gather around my computer if you like. Let me see if I can force it to go again. Okay, so that's one of the pictures that's on there.
It's a great picture.
I'll send it to you. It's a great. Oh, now it's on my computer again. So we're having a little technical difficulty in this room, and we're going to work on that over the vacation.
Exactly.
But, I mean, the nice thing is the kids had a good time. They got to go to Children's Hospital, the look on their face. We're talking about the community service piece for our students. So this is a way to connect our students back to school, making sure that they're giving back to their community as given to them. So it was a really nice time for those kids.
May I tag on to your good news?
Yeah, sure.
I received an email that was sent out to our technology director and Dr. Lang from a teacher at Harrington. And there were discussions last night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting about the divisions between the town and the school. And technology is one area, especially in our network, that we are really strong as one body. And this email was sent to Mr. Silver, our director, about Matt Hall. It says, "My name is Tara Trainer and I work over at Harrington School in room 15. I wanted to let you know of the amazing job Matt Hall did in my classroom. Today, after I sent an email voicing frustration about technology, he came right over, he assessed the situation, he ran to the high school, got all the parts my classroom needed, and had my 24 students up and running the Chromebooks. It was awesome. I was so happy to work in a district that worked quickly to get my problem solved. I really appreciate Matt taking the time and figuring this out. I use technology all the time, and now I'm confident that it will work. Yay. So we're a strong team in a lot of ways, and we need to focus on the good. Thank you.
That was it for good news.
Thank you. Tom, you want to come up?
All right, so we will have Tom back up again.
Extra special meeting. Tom twice.
And, yeah, Tom is continuing our department chair presentation. So Tom is the first department coordinator who's going forward this evening, and he's going to present on the work that's transpiring in the district around the K-12 school counseling program. So we'll turn it over to Tom for his presentation.
Great, thank you.
Good to have you here tonight.
So you had received two pieces of information. There was the slides that are up here on the TV here, and then the other is just the annual guidance report, and that just details all the statistics of our previous year's graduating class, standardized test scores, including SAT, AP, ACT, where they applied to college, where our top 25 students decided to commit to, things like that. Certainly at the end of the PowerPoint, if there's any questions pertaining to that, I have that information with me if you have any questions. The PowerPoint itself is just kind of a general overview of the counseling program in town. Some of you are very familiar with a lot of this from a couple of years ago, and a couple of you are newer to the committee and haven't sat through it. And then I have a couple of new pieces to share with you as well. In general, I don't need to read it to you. Our counselors are just committed to supporting our students in a 3-domain approach that is provided by ASCA and MASCA, and that's just supporting our students' academic, social, emotional, and career needs. We do our best to kind of work at each domain through a variety of approaches, which I'll discuss with you when we talk about each level. In general, the counselors are provided a number of resources, including the ASCA and MASCA manuals that I already referred to. Although they are not clinicians who diagnose and or do psychotherapy treatment, they are professionals in their field when it comes to recognizing when a student is having a hard time and when they may need to be referred to see an outside clinical professional. So with that being said, most recently the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, I think that came out in 13 but actually didn't hit print until 14. They all have that resource in their offices to reference. That is a great resource because not only does it have criteria for diagnosis, but it also discusses treatment. So it can also be a helpful guiding tool for counselors to work with families to make appropriate suggestions on how they can work with their family doctor and a possible clinician to support their emotional needs. Other areas that we have DESE and state guidelines. One of the most recent ones deal with or addresses our LGBTQ community and gender identity and how that plays out in schools. And each year students are feeling more and more comfortable, which is awesome, to speak with their teachers or their parents or their counselor. And there's some different guidelines that go around in supporting students, not just in the classroom, but also in facilities, bathrooms, hotel rooms for trips, but also names should they be a transitioning individual. Also, we have a toolkit for high schools on preventing suicide. I think at Chelmsford High, we've done a great job over the last handful of years as we used to call it Drug Task Force. Recently, we're rebranding it, and then we're going to bring back the Live Smart name because it's just all about making good, healthy choices. And with that being said, the statistics were shared at the last school committee meeting, but there's just a number of areas in the social emotional domain that we really want to focus and hone in on to support our students so we don't find ourselves in a predicament where we have to use that toolkit. between the Break Free from Depression, the counselors co-facilitate in over 4 lessons with the health educators and the signs of suicide that we, a vetted program that we do with our 8th graders with those health educators, and even at the 7th grade level, the coping skills, which I'll mention a little bit later. So it's something that we take seriously and we want to do thoughtfully, and the counselors do a great job with that. I thought it'd be important just to throw up there weekly counselor responsibilities. Their calendar is basically booked from the beginning to the end of the day. And it's for a variety of reasons. Students aren't just their only contact throughout the school day. Teachers will come for consultation on how to work and address different student behaviors and emotions. They will attend IEP meetings. They run 504 meetings. They'll work with special educators to, again, meet the needs and address different parts of their programming. They work with the Department of Children and Families. That can be something that's scary for families, and rightfully so. However, what families don't realize is that they're also there as a resource. And we will call and consult with them pretty frequently, just so we're making sure that we're providing the adequate care, and also know that we are making the right decisions when it comes time to make the decision if we are going to need to file with them. MSPPP interface is actually the name changed. It changes every year. I don't remember. Interface is still stayed in the name. Interface, if just as a quick reminder, especially for the people that are viewing from home, anybody that's a taxpayer in the town of Chelmsford, it's not just our students, our adults, our senior citizens, that is a number that you can call. It's on our website. In the event that you need social emotional help, you need to see a therapist. Sometimes that is something that's tricky for individuals to navigate because they've never done it before. Some doctors are better than others at having referral lists available. The insurance thing can be scary for some families, so that's something that every taxpayer in town can utilize. But on the school side of things, I love it also because my counselors don't need to be putting their social worker hat on and calling agencies on an annual basis, seeing if they take X, Y, and Z insurances. Interface takes care of that. And if a family's hesitant to do it, our counselors will sit with the student, sit with the parents in their office, and call and start that conversation, and then Interface will do a follow-up with the family. So it's a phenomenal program. I love that we have it, and we get numbers annually. It's being used, which is wonderful. So anyhow, those are just some of the tidbits I had touched upon on that slide. So for our elementary guidance department, school counseling department rather, 4 awesome counselors. I'm actually really lucky in general. We have a great department in Chelmsford. We have a number of experienced veterans who have been and continue to be strong contributors to our counseling curriculum, to our group counseling curriculum, contribute great resources, and we also have a number of new folks within 1 to 5 years of experience in the department who have been tremendous resources as well. It's nice to get people fresh out of grad school with current trends and training, so they've been wonderful. For now, at the buy-in, we now have 4 veterans, which is great. They do a lot of weekly classroom lessons. I would say 4 out of the 5 days a week, they are in 1 or more classes every day. Typically the day where they have student study team and IEP meetings, those tie up a lot of time. The tricky thing with the classroom lessons is many of our counselors in the district are also on the restraint team, / child protection team. So, and that dwindles as the kids get older, but at the elementary age where we have kiddos coming in who never went to preschool, so may not have been identified, or come in from another district and we don't know anything about. So that can be time consuming for them as well. They sometimes end up being pulled from, a group or a classroom or something like that. So they wear a lot of hats.
It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, good.
That's correct.
I'm not touching the computer. Last time I did that, I bounced out, so.
No problem. The lessons that they do in the classroom, they vary. We do Superflex, which I've talked in the past before about, and the unthinkables with guys like Glassman, who increase children's anxiety, and Rock Brain, which make it hard for them to transition and make decisions. And so then Superflex is that other side of your brain that's supposed to be encouraging and remind you of the right skills to use in different situations. We couple that with a lot of times the lessons overlap with zones of regulation, because the zones of regulation are what help students identify what coping strategy I can use to bring my temper down. The counselors do a wonderful job with that in the classroom. They have lunch groups, again, 4 out of 5 days a week, and typically just about every grade level they have more than 2 or 3 lunch groups. A lot of the times it's around friendships and developing friendships and social behavior and interaction. And then other times it has more to do with, we kind of combo it. We have students' typical peers, and then maybe students who have different lagging skills in social areas, and the typical peers can model the appropriate behaviors. So it's really a nice thing that they do with their students. And of course, pride is something that's prevalent in every school, K to 12. It's one of those things that I think we kind of didn't realize it when we were first jumping into social emotional learning and PBIS, but that is PBIS at its finest. It's a program that all hands are on deck: counselors, teachers, students, you name it, all staff and personnel, and just really trying to reinforce the pride values and characters we like to see in our students. And then, of course, last year they had started the Safe Touch curriculum with grade K. We're continuing with that. The K1 is a multi-day. What they're going to start doing with the older classrooms is we bought a curriculum resource, but they found that even the 4 days with the K kids was a little bit lengthy, and so with the older kiddos, even a day, going for a typical classroom lesson and talk about different activities for different grade levels on appropriate behaviors and what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. So for middle school, we have 2 veterans now, and then we one. She was wonderful. We had her for 2 years. She lived up in New Hampshire. It was a big commute. She's going to be wants to be a mom sooner than later. And so she had something open up in town, so we lost her. But we got another great counselor in Moya Charity. She's wonderful. There are actually a couple of schools that were going to get her when we interviewed her, and she wanted to commit with us because she did a maternity leave last year. So Moya's on board and already hitting the ground running. The Parker, we have our counselors, Autumn and Melissa, who's still doing wonderful. A couple of big things that we do, the grade 5 and 6 counselors, they do pride lessons in the classroom. For example, Autumn Dolan at the Parker is in the classrooms 2 times a week all year. And so, again, developmentally appropriate lessons. A lot of it is around pride while doing the pride components, also embedding in different skills and strategies for academics. Our SOAR curriculum, that's for a targeted group of students that aren't identified and have a 504 or an IEP. But we've identified them as, again, some different lagging skills and needing the additional supports. As you can see, SOAR stands for Set Goals, Organize, Ask Questions, and Record Your Progress. We find that in the transition from grade 6 to 7, when you go from 2 teachers to the full 5, and the organization piece that comes around that, that is a tremendously helpful curriculum for those students who really do suffer with the study skills with the organization piece. Let's see here. And those lessons are actually 2 days a week per grade for grade 7 and grade 8. Let's see here. We already addressed the coping skills and the signs of suicide that we do with grade 7 and 8, with the counselors working side by side with the health department. I got to say again, I know I've said it in the past, and I know it's been part of the health presentation, but that grade 7 lesson with the coping skills is wonderful because we have health, PE, and counseling staff in the class as a group together. We front load it with information, and then we just do little 5-minute breakouts of whether it be different coping strategies like a yoga, like writing, like drawing, like journaling was another component. So it's nice that these people are giving up their prep time during the day to commit to working with these kids on those areas. And then again, we do have groups at the middle school as well: lunch, anxiety, familial relationship issues, you name it. And then at the we do have a new counselor due to retirement. Mike Fanning, who's at the high school for a number of years, retired last year, and we have Jamie Hill on board. A lot of times it's an alumni from the area and then they report back and write summary notes about our students who do the mock interviews. October, we're finding the end of October, it's too late, especially for kids who are doing early action. So we're now bumping that into the springtime. We're going to do mock interviews in the springtime so students get that experience well in advance. And then they also have additional time, whether it be over the summer with their families or a sibling or whomever, they can practice as well. Yeah, a lot of these things continue to be the same. Something I added in, I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago now, the CFS, College Funding Services Financial Planning Night. That's in addition to MIFA. It's not that we endorse him. He provides a paid service if people want. He provides a 30-minute consult after the fact. But what he does that MIFA doesn't do is give you different tips and tricks. You know, if you're a student from a divorced family, if you own a business that has fewer than 50 employees, if, you name the scenario, there are different things that are going to be helpful for you to know to fill out the FAFSA. So he's a tremendous resource. He doesn't mind me giving him a call. He's actually, for a couple of our students in the past, took them on pro bono and just did it for free because he knew they were in a tough situation. So he's a great connection to have. And a lot of these other things I've mentioned. Oh, the new piece that I want to talk about under the counseling activities, not the career piece, is in addition to sophomore success, which is new this year, and again, deans, health educators, and counselors, we also want to do a freshman flex seminar. We're still working out the logistics. We wanted to start this in the fall, but we also didn't want it to fall flat and not work. Again, due to the schedule, we're looking at making flex a required time for freshman students 6 times a year. And that's to go back to what Karen was saying, is if our students aren't healthy and well, they're not going to be learning. So we also want them to develop a strong connection with their counselors, and we don't want to take away from class time. And so what the freshman flex is, there's a lesson on grit. There's a lesson for Naviance. It's practical. There's a lesson on relationships and relational aggression. That's something that we are looking at a little bit more closely. And the statistics are a little alarming, so we want to make sure that we're talking with our students early on about that, and also reinforcing what our health educators are sharing with the students as well. So social media, that is, Sal, you were touching on that as well. I mean, ideally we want to be able to do some sort of seminar with our students annually on social media because it's constantly evolving, and kids are really stepping in it when they get online. Naviance, same great resource. There's that actually for any parents that are watching at home or here or what have you. Something I love on Naviance is called Road Trip Nation, and it's over 100 different segments of different professionals and how they got to where they got. Some went the non-traditional route. It's really inspiring. And some went the very traditional route, got to where they thought they wanted to be, and then completely changed gears. So if you're ever looking for, something to do with your child and they seem lost, that might be a nice activity to do with them. And there's plenty of them. All right. Again, more activities that we do via Naviance. All right. So if you folks have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, Barbara.
A few. What grade level does Naviance begin? Is it K through 12?
Great question. So it starts with freshmen.
Okay.
Eventually, I'm going to look to expand it. Very recently, they're talking about pulling it down to the middle school levels, but for now, freshmen.
Got my second question. My third question is, why don't we have social workers in our schools? It seems like, especially at the high school level, colleges are, I think, are objective for our students.
Yeah.
But the counselors are dealing so much with social, emotional, and not just lightweight issues,
Yeah.
but life or death issues.
Right.
Maybe not so much in the younger grades, at middle school probably a little more. It seems like, how do we do it without social workers, Tom?
Right. Well, a couple of things. One, I'd love that too. I think it's definitely also, budgetary issue, of course.
Do most schools have them in our area? I mean, I would assume Lowell has.
It really, actually, Lowell is quite different from our model. They have predominantly social workers throughout the district. Over 100, I think it is, to some extent. But anyhow, they have a number. Andover has social workers at the high school.
19 social?
In the district.
Oh, at the high school.
And it's 5 or 6 at the high school.
Right.
Wow.
But it's a different model.
Yeah.
There's some different model. We also have clinical psychologists here, which is a very different model from.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's structured here.
Yeah, I have a cousin who teaches down in New Jersey in a very well-to-do community. She's in an elementary school and they have 2 social workers. We have none.
But again, we have a different model, so our guidance counselors, we have them K to 8, K through the high school.
Right.
So they take on some of that role here, they're not, they do take on some of that role, it's just a little bit of a different training, but I will say that they're very skilled at what they do to have that social work component of their job and their hat. And
It
kind
seems
of fill
so
that role.
divisional, though. You have students who are trying to focus on what's next in college, and then you have students, their needs are in the second. I don't have a place to sleep tonight. There's a gap that we're not able to address. And, God love the counselors, but how do they do that?
And it is a role that they work hand in hand, the guidance staff at the high school with the clinical social psychologists.
Yeah.
So it just happens to be the model that's been.
And I still don't remember my second question.
No problem.
Other people, any questions?
Yes, I'll just read this.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the mock interviews?
Oh, sure. So let's say for example, I'm applying to Dartmouth and Harvard. Once you send in your application, you're prompted to set up an interview for the school. Typically, it's done at a coffee shop locally. Like sometimes students of ours will go to Java and meet with an alumni from that particular school, just because the admission reps is just not enough of them, or worldwide for that matter. So people will take it on in different segments of the country. And what they do is a lot of times the interview itself that occurs with these folks, they're trying to glean from the students more about them personally. They can look at the transcript. Schools can look at the transcript. They can see their essay. They can see their standardized test scores and these things. But tell me about you. So when I'm meeting with you, is this kid just a bookworm? Are there more layers to him? And a lot of times that's what I can't speak for every school because every school has different expectations, right? But a lot of the times they're looking to get to know the student. They also want to see, blanket on the phrase right now, designated interest, that's not it. Some of these smaller, very academic schools are looking for students who really want to be there. So anytime they have contact with the school, they document it. So if I go on a campus visit, they want to know your name, it goes in the file. If I call and talk to the admissions rep, they document it, they put it in the file. Mock interviews, goes in the file. So any communications, emails, etc., they'll document that information. So that's another component to it as well. But the interviews are really just to get to know the students.
I said it a little earlier, only because I follow. I'm so interested to understand, how our kids get into schools, because there's only a few slots for thousands and thousands of kids. So I can make this kind of a statement. I'm sure that you get to a point where they have a pool of kids that all have the same grades. They all did well on the SATs or achievements. They all tested where they needed to test. They have great transcripts. well, really, what separates you from the next person that they're going to choose? What is your competitive advantage? And I just think if you could help our kids through these mock interviews, I really think that's maybe the secret sauce, the special ingredient, because when you sit down and you look at that child in the eyes and he's able or she is able to articulate themselves of why they want to go to this school and why they're going to contribute and how they're going to contribute, that's a big deal. So the competitive advantage for that student is being able to get in front of that director of admissions or somebody in admissions and be able to say, let me tell you why I want to go to your school, and let me tell you what I'm going to add. And that level of confidence is a big deal. So I think those mock interviews are really, really a big deal, and I'd like to see you continue that.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Are we going to discuss the year-end report, or can I just ask some questions about it?
If you have any questions, the stats are there, so yeah, sure.
I just more of a comment. I mean, if you read through some of these, I mean, it's a pretty impressive little document. I mean, the advanced placement program, 2016, we're about 80%, which is 10 points higher than the rest of Massachusetts, and 20 points higher than the rest of the country. I'm usually impressed with results, right? And I like to look at things like this and say, we're probably doing something right.
Sure.
Yeah.
When I mentioned the school profiles earlier, one thing I did take a look at is offerings as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were 10 districts. I'm not going to remember them off the top of my head. I know Concord, Carlisle, Acton, Boxborough, Lincoln, Sudbury, Westford. Of all the 10, and I've just mentioned some powerhouses, right? We offer more AP classes than any one of them.
It's unbelievable.
Which is, I think, a strength to our programming and our teachers, and but also Dr. Hirsch in supporting the curriculum, and also being able to provide the resources to fund the training over the summertime to get these folks on board.
It's great. And then if you continue to go through this, and I was just looking at some of this stuff, again, results. I mean, look at the colleges the kids are getting accepted to. I mean, not even just the top 25. I mean, the acceptance in the schools on here. I mean, Carnegie Mellon, Boston University, it's just great. So I think it's more.
University of Ohio.
Oh, the university. Yeah, I guess we got one. It's true.
Are you an alum?
No, my son does.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
But it's really just a comment. I mean, that is an outstanding body of work, right? So you look at results and how do you affect a kid's life and how do you prepare them for the future? That's just great. It's a comment, not a question. So
Sure.
Thanks for bringing that. I hadn't seen this before.
Sure. And in fairness, it's a reflection of the students' hard work, but it's also, I think, a reflection of the educators in the district.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Could I ask you for one thing
please.
on that report? The list of schools is impressive. However, it's a little bulky. What I'd like to see is like a pie chart broken down by basically by the competitiveness of the schools. So 20% would go to the most competitive, 50% would go to highly competitive, 30% would go to less competitive. I mean, each of these schools is ranked in a category by, pick your organization, Barron's or U.S. News and World Report, things like that.
Yeah.
Can we pull that information out of Naviance? And just what I'm looking for is half a page that we can give to the Economic Development Committee or somebody else who wants a quick, punchy summary of what we're doing with the kids in terms of preparation for college.
Just make it visual.
Yeah,
I like pictures too.
I'm trying to think of how to. All I can think of right now is like top 50 liberal arts colleges, public, top 50 liberal arts private, and so then how do I believe I would be assigning what would be considered highly.
No, I think, that's what I'm saying. I think you can pull that from some outside organization, so you don't need to do it.
Okay.
And maybe it's just another database that gets put into Naviance or something. Who does it is Shrewsbury. I'll send you a copy of what they do, just to kind of show you. And I think on there they reference the organization that they're using to kind of categorize the schools.
Okay. And if I need to reach out to them,
right.
And don't worry about it. You have till the end of the meeting to get it done.
Perfect.
Yeah. You'll run another hour.
No problem.
Anything else? Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tom.
Josh.
Extend
Thanks,
our appreciation to your staff, because we know they're good.
Will do. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. So, moving down to the next presentation of the evening, I'd like to invite the, one more, yeah. Oh, I'll, let me send it over to you. Have representatives from Dormer Whittier. Brad, come on up. Michelle, Jason. They're here this evening tonight to kind of officially convey the final draft comprehensive facilities report to the school committee. In your
That's not the presentation, is it?
in your school committee packet, I had given you just a copy of the executive summary for you to read this evening. And then I'll be uploading the various sections of the report to the Dropbox, and we'll be loading them up on the district website so viewers from home can access them. It is quite a bit of paper. And I think one of the things that Brad and his associates will do this evening is kind of walk you through the layout, thank you, Tom, of the reports, how readability, how to go about processing the information and reading the information, and then we'll talk about next steps at the end of the presentation. But I would love to turn it over to Brad and his colleagues to kick us off for tonight.
Sure. Well, thank you, Dr. Lang. And then while we're kind of working out the technology component here, I think we haven't met in a while. I think it was back, yeah.
Facial hair going now?
Yeah, I've had, getting my surgery taken care of, Movember, all that stuff. But I think it was back in November, right? Right around town meeting was the last time we met. And so, while we haven't been here, we have been working towards getting, the master plan report completed. We might be a little bit behind schedule, but we took a detour over the summer and really worked and spent a lot of time on the kindergarten options. And so now that, that was resolved in one aspect and, underway in another aspect, we shifted into getting this completed and really taking a look at the options that had been presented to the building committee of the working group, and then you more informally, and taking those and starting to work with our estimator to put numbers to those and really to construct the body of the report. And so where we are right now is, it's almost a little bit of an oxymoron when we say, final draft, but, that's what it is, because we're at a point now where we've articulated what all of the various options are, and we've looked backwards at your buildings to understand what the existing conditions are, to spend a lot of time working on what the kind of CIP requirements are, and then integrating those various options out there and looking at what that means in a much more holistic sense. What we haven't done is we haven't gone forward and said that, it's option 4, have not formally done option A, B, C, D, or E, because we hadn't at that point in time when we last met really put a number to those types of things. So what Jason and Michelle are going to do tonight is they're going to do a little bit of recap, and then we're going to go through the options and look at, what some of the cost considerations are associated with that, both in terms of capital improvements, maintenance type items, and then look at potential projects and the associated capital requirement for those. One thing, when we get into it, just to keep in the back of your mind, Michelle will probably say it anyways, but I'll just say it, is that all of the values that are put forward here today are in current dollars. And the reason for that is until we get to a point, or until you get to a point, that you're really able to go and say, how do these things start to sequence out, which project happens in what year and how does that work? We haven't gone forward and put escalation onto that, so what that would mean, in terms of the actual dollars that you would be expending if you went forward and implemented those projects, because we just don't know which one hits when. That's part of what it takes to go from final draft to make it final report. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michelle, and we can start to walk through. We've got a little presentation for you, and then certainly, you know, a lot of this will be familiar to you. Some of it, you know, might be refresher, and then we expect that you're probably going to have some questions. So we'll try and address as many of those as we can. And if we don't have the answers, we'll get back to you. We're not leaving. We also have more work to do. You know, we understand, right, that as, you know, what comes out of this master plan will also start to seed your SOI process. And, you know, we've spoken with Dr. Lang a little bit to identify, you know, what some of your objectives are here in terms of public informational meetings as we work to close out, you know, from final draft to final report. Does that all seem to make sense? All right, that's good, because my job now is done, and I'm going to turn it over to these guys.
Good evening. So I have handed out a few pieces of paper, and Dr. Lang has, as he told you, given you the executive summary. So what I'm going to do is just try to walk you through some of the format that we have and how to digest all of the work that's in the binders right now. So within your packet is the table of contents, and like any table of contents, this would be your guide to anything that you're trying to find. It's divided into these 5 categories of the executive summary, the facilities assessment, capital improvement plans, and their costs, and the summary of options, and then the summary of the master plan. So that's the 5 sections of the book as outlined. And as we start with the executive summary, that you all should have a copy of this by now. I think Dr. Lang has sent it to you. And this is exactly as it says. It is a summary of all of the pieces and parts that we've gone through. And it's pretty comprehensive, but as you go through this, if you want more information, that's going to be found in the sections that follow. So under the facilities assessment, there are facility assessments for each of the buildings, and they go through, oh, thank you. They're going to go through the building site and data, so you'll see the site plans, you'll see the building floor plans. You'll see the architectural engineering reports from the architects, the civil engineers, the structural, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection where it exists, which is essentially the Center Elementary School and the high school, and then kitchen equipment. And then we have included our own hazardous materials abatement report, which is different than the report that the town has for their own abatement. And that report goes through and talks about where suspect materials might be. And the numbers that you see in those reports are if you were to go and demolish the entire building or go through a major renovation, those are the kinds of numbers that you would be looking at for hazardous materials. Other than that, the hazardous materials that exist in the buildings, if they're in good condition, they're fine to stay, and disrupting them actually would be more hazardous than leaving them in place. So that's important to know. So when we go through the numbers through the capital improvement plans, we've tried to keep that hazardous material abatement number separate from the other numbers because they would be only for demolition of the entire building.
Just on that, so you'll have an AHERA report, which you'll be filing, which is your set of data, your set of costs associated with that. This plan may make or suggest changes, or you may decide, to make changes that are more holistic than what your AHERA report would require. So that addresses those as part of the report.
We did not include your AHERA report within this binder because it's about 300 pages long. It is included in the appendix if you go to the electronic version. So you'll see that within that piece, but it is quite comprehensive, and it goes through each one of your buildings. Can we go here? Mm-hmm. So this was, I think you've all seen this before, this was just the general overview of the conditions of the building, starting with red being in poor or missing condition, as it goes through the orange and then to yellow is in fair, green is good, and dark green is excellent. I think we've explained before when it's 2 different colors within the same box, it may be because you've done repairs and replacements to a certain part of the building, but other pieces might be in fair condition. And, does this have a pointer? Oh, there. It doesn't work, sorry. You'll see that fire protection is red across the board, except where you might have sprinklers or partial sprinklers within those buildings. Mostly accessibility, you have some areas where they are red or orange, a lot of accessibility needs throughout the district. Going further into the reports, what you're going to find is our capital improvement spreadsheets. They are included in the back section of each of the buildings' capital improvement. It looks something like this. It's in the packet that I just handed out. This is an example of how to read that. So the one that I handed out is the Chelmsford High School. And you can see that we have, on the left-hand side, we have 8 categories where we assessed the building. This bigger spreadsheet. And as we go through those 8 categories, there's site and civil, structural, exterior architectural elements, interior architectural elements, your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, and hazardous materials. And within each of those sections, we actually took a line item based in the reports. So going through each of the facilities assessment reports, those line items and recommendations have made their way into the spreadsheet, and they're located here. And then each of those items then gets characterized under health, safety, welfare, code compliance, functional use of the building, extending the life, if it's maintenance, if it's energy efficiency, or if it has hazardous materials. So as you're looking through, that is the categories in gray. We then took those same line items and quantified each one of them. So now we're looking for the repairs and replacements for each of those line items. Just to read the quantities here, for those of you who might not be familiar with that terminology, one LOC would be in one location. You might have the repair or the replacement. One LS is a lump sum, so it might be once or it might be twice, but you're getting a lump sum number. The linear LF is linear feet, SF is square feet, 100 is each. So if we got, something 12 countertops need to be replaced, that would be one of each in that category. And then hazardous materials is always done as a subtotal of all of those items that were identified. So we have our quantities, and then we have the costs, again, given in 2016 dollars, the cost of the repair or the replacement of the item identified. And then on top of that, we've added our designer pricing contingency at 10%, soft cost for 20%, and then the estimated total project cost for that particular line item. Now, what's important to understand here is if you're looking at each of these line items, you're not going to do that single item as a project. You're not going to go in and change the lights or the plumbing system above the ceiling. You're going to identify a scope of the project. So you might do your entire lighting and ceiling and plumbing replacement all as one project. So these line items would then be combined into a project. And in doing so, you may recognize some kind of savings by doing that.
So just to kind of talk a little bit about what some of those things actually mean there, a little further to the right in the yellow. So a design and pricing contingency is standard at this point in time because while we've gone through identified problems and put numbers to those problems, there's actually been no design work yet that's been done. So problems have been identified, we go and have the discussion with the estimators so that they're able to get their arms around it, but no detailed design has been done. So when you start to go and get farther into this and decide that you want to implement one of these projects, you'll actually go and start doing some of that work. And then that design or pricing contingency essentially will go to zero, and your number and the cost of repair will be impacted by, whatever that detailed or more detailed design has told you. So, it's essentially what it says there is a contingency because you haven't done that design work. Soft costs, okay, that multiplier on there is relatively standard. It's going to take, actually pay for that design, pay for, an OPM if it's warranted or whatever those types of costs are, and typically include, some type of owner contingency as well. So those are standard, what we call markups on top of a base cost to get you to what the project cost is. So it's an all-in number, and you're not shorting yourself up by just going and saying, here's what that cost is, because you will incur those costs.
The final section of the spreadsheet is where we begin to prioritize those line items. And we divided these into high priority. That would be 1 to 3 years, medium, 4 to 6. Low priority would be 7 to 10 years, and it would also include if you're going to do a replacement or full renovation of the building. So that's the category. In the case of adding sprinklers to a building, you probably wouldn't do that unless you're going to do a major renovation. So that would fall into this low priority. Even though, sprinklers are important, it's still a low priority. We also have ongoing maintenance, so those are things that fall into the maintenance category and not within prioritization of those others. And then finally, we've also included an area called notes, and what you're going to see in this column often is that there were things that were identified and completed either in 2016 or shortly before we arrived on site. Those had numbers associated with them and they were identified, but now those numbers are taken out. So you can see where over the course of the year, many items have been completed that were originally in the capital improvement plans. Sorry, before I go on. So that is this particular document. Within the gray lines here, you'll see that we have totaled each of those sections. The second spreadsheet that I gave to you actually takes every school and identifies each of those. So the schools are across the top, and the 7 or 8 categories identified are down along the bottom. So you can look at this in 2 ways. You can go back here and say, how much is the site work that Chelmsford High School needs? Or how much is the site work that all of the buildings within the town need? So you can do it in both directions. And then you can add those up. And those numbers are then pulled into the final report, which we're going to touch on in a moment. I'm going to pass this over to Jason and let him go through the visioning and options development.
Thanks, Michelle. So if you recall, we had several visioning sessions throughout the course of the study. The first one focused on sort of educational issues in the 21st century. The second one focused on big picture planning issues. We talked at length about school size and school count and grade configuration, in particular. Full day kindergarten was a topic discussed. And ultimately what fell out of that are the basic needs that were identified that needed to be solved by the various options. And those things included overcrowding across the district. How do we accommodate full-day kindergarten? How do we improve, any missing or inappropriate educational spaces that exist throughout the district? And ultimately, we were charged with developing this full range of options to address all of those issues. I think that there were 16 or 17 variations in total that we explored. And then some nuanced options of certain ones on top of that. So the way you read these charts is that each tile represents a facility in the district. Bolded tiles represent major projects and or building additions. If it's red, overcrowding remains an issue. If it's yellow, the resulting building is approximately right size. And if it's green, there is some surplus capacity created by the district-wide option. And as you recall, the working group and this school committee went through a round of evaluation where some criteria were developed, weights were applied to each of those criteria, and ultimately each of these options was scored based on the priorities of the district. And these 6 options rose to the top, and I'll just quickly remind everybody what they are. Option A continues the maintenance and capital improvement plan as it exists today. It doesn't undertake any major construction projects to rectify overcrowding or full-day kindergarten or any other educational improvements. And you can see, as a result, at least the overcrowding issue would remain. In option D...
And then choose as baseline.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, and Michelle's reminding me that option A is used as a baseline for cost comparisons, which you'll see in just a minute for all of the other options. Option D has 2 basic steps The first basic step would be to construct a new early childhood center, one of the concepts that was developed from our visioning, to house grades pre-K and K. Once that's completed, a second major step would be to place an addition at Parker in order to accommodate all of the district's 5th and 6th grade population. In option E, it's a single-step master plan solution that involves constructing a new 3 through 5 upper elementary school on a site yet to be determined. We actually tested the feasibility of that on the high school practice fields, and those site diagrams are in the final report. In option H, it explores a similar one-step strategy, but instead of an upper elementary school, it's an all-new conventional 6 through 8 middle school. In option I2, again, a very similar one-step strategy, but instead of a 6 through 8 middle school, it speculates about constructing a new 7 through 8 junior high school. Slightly smaller project from a square footage and a cost point of view than option H. And then finally in option J, again, it's a single-step master plan solution, speculating about constructing a new combination early childhood center and 9 through 12 middle school. 9 through 12 high school. In that particular scenario, the rest of the district would be impacted because the middle school would move up to the existing high school. Parker would be converted to a 1 through 5 elementary school, and the McCarthy School and the Westland School would be deemed discontinued for educational purposes. And so the costs for those projects, we've identified them in this way. We've shared what the capital improvement portion would be for each one of these master plan options and what the major project costs, whether it's a one-step solution or a two-step solution, would be. And then the grand total for each of these master plan options would be the sum of those two numbers. So you can see in option A that the work Michelle was just sharing with you has a $61.5 million cost estimate associated with that. In option D, because some of the schools are impacted by this early childhood center and the work done at the Parker School, not all of that $61.5 million of the capital improvement plan would be necessary to execute that, and so therefore there's only $40.2 million of capital improvements, and then the two major projects added together would total approximately $103.5 million. So a total master plan project, a cost of $143.7. So does everybody understand how to read those numbers? And as we move down through, I won't go through all of those, but they vary in cost. The least expensive of the options, I believe, is option I2. My math is correct. 54.6 and 84.4. And then the most expensive of the options is option J5, with the major high school and early childhood center project at approximately $283.5 million.
Quick question. The capital improvements portion, is that spread across all the schools or just the schools you touch?
No, so in all cases, the capital improvement number represents all of the other things you're doing to all of the other schools in the district.
I got it. All right. Just wanted to understand that. Thank you.
So as an example in that one, you would reduce the amount of capital improvements you would potentially do to the high school because you're executing that as your major project.
Got it.
Right?
Thank you.
I believe D was the least expensive.
Okay, I apologize. Michelle is correcting me that D was the least expensive option of the short list.
And so that chart is also included in your executive summary, the combination of those numbers.
So even without adding a school, the status quo, just to get the capital improvements, is 61 million.
Present
Yes.
dollars.
Present dollars, 61.5. Okay.
Mm-hmm. For the capital improvements that were identified in the study, yes.
These are the high
No, it
priorities?
is all of them.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And it doesn't relieve
overcrowding.
It doesn't solve
Correct.
any of
Building
the issues,
does.
it maintains the status quo.
Well, and recall that Westlands, because we only looked at it through the lens of pre-kindergarten and not through the lens of community education, it's undercrowded to start with.
Right.
Right? It's the same condition that it's in currently.
It might also just warrant a little discussion about the kindergarten, solution being a temporary solution and all these being long-term solutions.
Good point. So,
That's why I'm here.
so also, in your executive summary, we did note the kindergarten program, which is starting now, and actually, we'll talk about this in a moment. Is the next slide the master plan?
Yeah.
So to execute the master plan, the first step in that is resolving the kindergarten, which you have already begun to do. All of the options that we looked at solve kindergarten long-term. So we've always assumed that the pods and the modulars that you are adding to the building, those are temporary. And in every one of those solutions that Jason just went through, those modulars would go away and the building itself would solve the kindergarten program. So in the master plan timeline, this is depending on the options that you choose. So going back to those 5, your next step as a group is to determine which master plan option you want to go through with. And the first step is construction of the kindergarten modulars. And then starting after the year, when you've made that determination, you'll begin to look at submitting and putting together your statement of interest for the MSBA, identifying which project it is that you'll be asking them to help you with. We believe that it's about 6 years before you occupy the first building, and then somewhere prior to occupying that building, you would start the second project. So with the second statement of interest, you would go forward from there. And then depending on which option you choose, it's either a 2-step or a 3-step. And knowing that 15, 20 years from now, you're also continuing to look at the rest of the buildings. So we also, in our master plan, are looking at revisiting a master plan every 5 to 6 years.
And so this chart represents sort of all of the details of each one of these options, how it might be sequenced over the next 10 to 12 to 15 years. And we won't go through this in a lot of detail, but just some highlights. If you were successful in submitting a statement of interest for a priority project this upcoming spring, and were successful in getting invited into the MSBA's grant program, probably the fastest that first project could be executed is in time for occupancy in 2023.
Wow.
Right? It takes about 6.5 years from the submission of statement of interest to walking in the door. Right? Michelle mentioned that there might be an opportunity, just as that project is wrapping up, to submit the statement of interest for the second step, if there is one, and that's what's being highlighted in the year 2022. For those you have a question, John?
So if we go through this process and we get MSBA funding, and we fail to get funding for the project, and we try to go back to the pot again from MSBA, do we go to the bottom of the list? Is that a true statement?
So there is no list anymore.
Okay.
Right? The way it works is you submit your statement of interest. If you're not accepted, you must resubmit.
Well, we could resubmit the next year.
You could resubmit the next year, yes. It's a competitive, needs-based grant program. So the state will review all of the statements of interest that are submitted for a given year. They put them into their black box, and then out come however many projects they're going to support in that calendar year. If in the old SBA days, if you were number 33 and they only got to number 32 in a calendar year, then you were the first one on the list the following year. That's not the way the program operates now.
Okay.
Jason, a couple questions. First one, tell me how do you get picked after 7 years? Is it political? Is it based on need? Give me some of the criteria that at that level how they pick Chelmsford.
What do you mean after 7 years?
Well, it's to get in the queue.
So you would submit your statement of interest in the spring,
right?
This
spring. Of this year.
Of 2017, and they would review your statement of interest in that calendar year.
Yep.
Right? And often they're notifying districts somewhere between, 12 and 18 months, whether or not you're invited.
Okay.
Right? But once you're invited, you're in.
Okay.
Right? What we're saying takes 6.5 years is should all the dominoes fall according to plan, and the MSBA comes up with their share of the funds, and Chelmsford comes up with your share of the funds, that you could walk in the door to a finished project in 6.5 years. Not that you submit a statement of interest and then wait around for 6.5 years for them to respond to you. That's the timeline for a full completed project.
So in the first 18 months, like, what are some of the criterias that they, can you talk a little bit more about that? I know we've discussed that before, but just bring people up to speed on that again.
It's always changing.
Yep.
And there's a handful of factors. There's socioeconomic factors, there's development factors, there's overcrowding factors, there's physical condition factors that all play a role in them prioritizing some projects over others. The best that the district can do is to compile this statement of interest with enough detail that highlights what the issues are, to paint as clear a picture for the MSBA as possible. Right, and as we've identified, you do have overcrowding issues here. You do have physical building issues that need to be addressed. You've got some antiquated buildings. Your last major construction project, I believe, was the center school, and that was before the turn of the century. So there are some factors that I think would work in Chelmsford's favor related to those particular criteria, but you just won't know what the MSBA's disposition is until you submit a statement of interest.
And there are threshold issues that they're going to be looking at for sure. And just in the needs-based equation, how bad is that school? Are there structural issues associated with that school? Health and safety type issues. So the other thing is once they've gone through and done their evaluation of who's in the pool in a given year, I think that what ends up happening is there are certain candidates ultimately that are going to be perceived as more needy than others, and those candidates will be going through subsequent MSBA reviews. They'll come out, they're going to visit your site and your schools to verify that in fact what's been put forward in your SOI appears to be true, and then that'll help influence their decisions based on ultimately the amount of money that they have available and the amount of need that they can service in any given year. And are there politics involved? There's politics involved in everything, I think. But the kind of the stated line on that is that it is a needs-based assessment, and they're trying to go and service as many communities throughout the Commonwealth as they possibly can.
So if I look at all the communities around us, I see Tewksbury with a brand new high school. Bill Rick is building one. Lowell's now going to be building one. There's a common theme with high schools. Do you agree with that, or is it just we happen to be in an area where they're either reinvesting into the high school, for example, Drake it, or they're building new high schools, for example, Tewksbury? It seems like we're surrounded by it.
You do have you have some big projects, obviously, with Lowell being next door, Billerica and so forth. But we can honestly say that there's a lot. There's a pretty large kind of shotgun, if you will, in terms of all these types of projects that are out there. We're working on a couple elementary schools right now. We went for a period there where we seem to be doing a lot of middle schools or middle high schools. And throughout the Commonwealth, there are all shapes and sizes and grade configurations. Well, not all grade configurations, because that would be too far out, but out of the box. But kind of high schools, middle schools, elementary schools that are being done. So you are in an area right now, and a lot of publicity is associated with a really large project, because it's a big number, and so that's why I think you see a lot of that. But you certainly do have a large range of schools that are being worked on, because there's a significant need. It's based on the buildings that are out there, and not necessarily what grades they serve.
Thank you.
And so just going back to this detail a little bit, So the basic timeline is the same. If it's a single step project, the earliest that it could be occupied is 2023. If it's a two-step project, the earliest the second step could be occupied is around 2028. And we don't want to dwell on this, but let's say that this is a 12-year time horizon, and that's about where our master plan is looking. We just want to make everyone aware that even though these two steps may exist, at the end of it, you may still have schools that are of significant age, and we would advise you to continue to revisit the master plan to see what the sequence of steps might be outside of this 12-year time horizon that we've sort of focused on as part of our master plan.
The 2022 really is just a placeholder, right? In terms of those projects that are there, because there's been no decisions made on that. The master plan option series there really looks at what's going on in 2017. So, we know that in a master plan theory, if you will, one project gets completed, and if you have more than just, one project need, another one would follow. But ultimately, in 2021, you would, as Jason's saying, revisit that and then make that determination. So just keep that in mind. Those are placeholders.
And so, as Michelle mentioned, the next big step for the school committee and the town is to identify what the priority project is. What's the first step? Because that'll determine what statement of interest needs to be submitted to the MSBA. We already talked about the timeline for the full day K modulars, and that we think that they're on target for occupancy in the fall of 2017. We helped you establish that timeline. And then as Brad mentioned, we need to have some feedback from you before we make the report officially final. We've delivered the final drafts both electronically and in digital form, and we've already mentioned this statement of interest. So with that, we'll invite any additional questions you might have.
We've been asking a lot of questions.
Can I jump in for a second? Just to talk a little bit about, process. So we have the final draft report. And the way I saw this playing out, and I think I've had a couple of conversations with different individuals, is, as I indicated, I will make the electronic copy of that report. I'll put it in the Dropbox for the school committee, but then we'll post it up to the district website also for the public to be able to read. And the goal really would be between now and the point where we pick of the 5 options that are out there, our master plan option that goes into the statement of interest. We can do kind of editing or go through this particular report, identify different questions we may want to have answered. And then at such a time that, between the January-February timeframe, when we do, again, some more kind of community visioning sessions, seek some public input about which of the 5 projects to move forward with, ultimately bring that project forward to the school committee for a vote. Ideally, probably the second meeting in February, worst case scenario, the first meeting in March, absolutely no later. When we then select that master plan option and go back to, Dora Whittier, and we say, this is the option we want to have you include in the statement of interest, use March to incorporate that into the statement of interest and then submit to the SBA that late March, early time frame for that. But what Dora Whittier will do is then whichever master plan option we select to go into the SOI, they will go back in the kind of the final section of this report and indicate that that's the option that we selected. So then they would revise the timelines to reflect that that's our option, and that's kind of our final master plan that we move forward with. And then obviously we need to apply to the SBA for the SOI, get into the cycle and see where that project goes. But at least we as a community would have come together and said, here's the draft report. This is the road that we want to go in, and the report would reflect such, so that we would actually have that as a document to work from. So that's my kind of thought process around this. And this particular document, we still have a couple of months to tweak and to send some feedback back and forth with, and then hopefully select that master plan option, submit the statement of interest, and then finalize this work.
Are you thinking then that we will not release the preliminary report to the public until we have the final?
No, I'm with this week, like this report, we can certainly post online. I'm just, I don't want to have 10 different paper copies of that made until we kind of have a final report. What I was planning on doing was just having it be available electronically, and people can read it and people can print it. But where it is only a draft report, it didn't make a lot of sense, I was thinking, to have a bazillion paper copies made if it was gonna change again in 2 months. But what we're gonna be able to do is kind of go section by section through it, internally, and then, seek input if people have questions, and then come back to Durham Whittier and say, could you tweak this? Is this accurate? Do we need to look at something a little differently? And we have the 2 months to do that before we actually have to kind of finalize the final draft. But then at such a time where we're gonna lock in that master plan option, then we will actually, finalize the document. They'll convey the final copy. That's the point in time where we'll actually have some paper copies. I would want a copy here at the school department. We'd want one for DPW, probably one for town hall. We'd have to figure out how many copies of the real paper report we want. And then we would replace the draft report, which was posted online, with the final online copy, so that the public could have access to it whenever they wanted.
Well, my concern is that this is going to be the basis of the discussions we have with the community.
Right.
About which project to go forward with. So it's going to have to be available then in its draft form, right?
No, I guess we might be on the same page. It is available now in that draft form, and we'll have a copy or two here.
So it's not going to change really. Just so that people are clear, the numbers in here are not negotiable. The only difference between this draft format and the final format is going to be the winnowing down to the final.
The master plan option.
The master
The
plan
5 going to
option.
1. I'm just saying more, let's say we noted a grammatical error or something like that.
Right, of course.
There can be some pickups
Right.
as a draft, but
Right, but no, nothing number-wise.
substance should be the same.
Yeah, exactly. Just because people are going to have to rely on this, I think, as we have those discussions about what do we want to do in terms of going forward.
Right. No, that document, this will prevail for that.
Right.
I was just talking more small edit
agreed.
type tweak things.
All the population assessments, the red, the green, the yellow, are based on the inclusion of the modulars, correct?
No.
Oh.
So, right, just to, be clear on this point one more time. When we performed our analysis, right, we performed the analysis excluding the modulars, knowing that in a resulting master plan, the modulars would not be present.
Okay.
Okay? So, all of the master plan options have no modulars at the conclusion of the master plan. Every space is in permanent constructed space.
Or any building.
Okay.
So even if they exist today, we did not include them in our analysis of the building size.
So that would just be, if we kept them up, it would be bonus space.
The modules.
The modules.
Correct.
Right. We're buying these modulars, we're not leasing them, correct?
You
I
own the
think
modules.
We own them, we decide at their use, annex, whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
And so part of the discussion, if you remember, right, and it was part of the discussion that
I don't
started
remember yesterday, so.
the whole kindergarten, discussion, was that in order for this to pass muster with MSBA, right, the standard there, is to have a useful life building of 50 years.
Okay.
Modulars don't meet that criteria.
Got it.
Right,
Got
I
it.
remember that.
Right. So in order to, tie all of this together,
Right.
and have it make sense from a useful life perspective, and how all of that works in order to be eligible for reimbursement, et cetera, okay, that was what we had agreed upon doing in terms of the basis for developing options, understanding what enrollments would be, and being able to tie that back to your projections, and therefore being able to do kind of those space allocations between the various schools.
So the modulars are really Band-Aids, that's it?
They are,
places.
and the way we've always
Yeah.
represented them, as they relate to this master plan, is they are not a permanent building solution.
Right.
It's part of our story. It's part of our SOI. So we so desperately needed space, we added these to make more space. Please.
Correct.
Please give us MSBA funding.
Well, and to implement a program, right, that you don't currently have.
Right.
Right, that's the difference here. You're increasing your space needs requirement, on top of an already space deficient situation. In order to mitigate that problem or resolve that problem in a temporary way, you needed to, if you were to implement full day K, you needed to have a space solution. This spatial solution, because it's part of a long-term master plan, doesn't qualify because it's not part of a long-term building solution, which is criteria that you need to have when you're looking at it from an MSB reimbursement perspective.
So those modules have become part of a larger narrative to help sell the Chelmsford story to MSBA. It's really what it is.
Yes, correct.
Right, and the reason why you're choosing to purchase them over renting them is because we know that the break-even is about 5 to 6 years. Your 6 years to the end of occupying your first project, that doesn't, depending on which option you choose, does not necessarily give you all the room in your elementary school until maybe the second project. So you could be 10 to 12 years with kindergarten in modular, if, depending on which option you choose.
If everything goes well.
A lot of ifs in that sentence.
Right. So that's why the buy is a better option for you as a town.
This is a plan for you to attempt to implement the solution.
Right. Got it.
Any other questions?
When are we doing the vote to select the option again?
Well, the plan would be to actually, in, January, in early February, before February vacation, have at least 1 or 2 public sessions again, when we invite people in, to have a presentation about the 5 a detailed kind of regroup, the 5 options for the public. Figure out kind of a scoring system, however we wanted to kind of look at those options and rate them down to one preferred option that ultimately would come before the school committee. Second meeting in February, first meeting in March at the latest, for you to actually select the option that you want to include in the statement of interest. But the thought process was to have, January and the early part of February be that community input phase, go back out, let people know exactly these are the 5 options we're looking at, seek the input, have the discussion, and try to whittle this down by early February.
Have we?
Mid-February.
So that's good. So has anybody reached out to, when we were at the conference,
Yep.
remember I told you there's that organization, the name's escaping me. Has anybody reached out to them?
Which organization?
It was the nonprofit, and they helped the communities do public outreach, community, I gotta think about it.
Wasn't that public outreach for that preschool initiative in urban communities?
I think they do a lot of different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember you talking to me about it. No, I haven't.
talk about it.
We can follow up on that.
Yeah, and if it makes sense, I just think we gotta have all hands on deck.
Mhm. But again, I'm open for discussion, but I think this would be a good time, to kind of, and I think the timing is nice on this, to kind of conclude the first phase of the work, shift into phase 2,
Yeah.
reacclimate the public with exactly the options we're looking at. Let them know we're not starting from scratch. We're not coming up with new options. These are the 5 options that we're really considering. Have lengthy discussions about the pros and cons of each, and actually go through some kind of a scoring system to figure out which option really works best for us, and then ultimately bring that up at the February meeting, ideally, to give us a little more time. Worst case scenario, the March meeting, and be able to then start working on that statement of interest. So we've been internally kind of tossing around some dates for January. We're going to run them by Brad and his staff, and because I'd like to at least get the announcement out before Christmas of what the dates will be. So almost like send out a save the date type reminder, just so that we can get them on the calendar for January. Get this information up to the district website, and then be able to start kind of blasting out some information on the district website, Facebook, social media. Email our town reps, because we're going to want to have them being included and involved early on, so that people know ultimately what in the long term might come their way. So we'll have a lot of work to do, but that's my thought process at this point. I'm curious to hear if you think that's a good way of going about this, and if you'd have any recommendations otherwise for me.
Just one thought to add to that is, I would encourage you to try and get that February meeting as your time frame, because if you establish April 1 as kind of your date where your SOI needs to be done end of March, you're going to want to have some of that time to be able to go and get that prepared, and there's a fair amount of lifting there to be able to get that in shape. Right. So you want to have that decision precede.
Right. We were, I was kind of internally, hoping for that March 21st date. We could always have a special meeting as well if the group wanted to, because there might be another opportunity for public input that evening, and really just take up this one matter to kind of come to resolution on. That kind of falls into the February vacation week, so even if we, pushed it out to Tuesday the 28th, at least we'd have a decision by the end of February, and then we'd have a full month to put the SOI together. So I guess just as a recommendation, I guess I would have a recommend a motion to basically just accept the conveyance of the kind of the draft final facility report from Dora Whittier. And like I said, I'll work to kind of get it up on the website and get it out there so people can see it. If people can't access the document from the website, we'll make it available in my office. People can come in and gladly sit in here and take a look at it at their leisure.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the conveyance of the draft recommendations from Doran Whittier.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any negative vote or abstention? None. It's unanimous.
Thank you guys very much for your work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Michelle.
That one's yours.
Ours, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, I thought you took one.
You got some reading to do now.
So one goes to.
They have two. That's what they're looking for, yeah.
One goes.
No, not at all.
I have to go.
No.
I'm giving this one to Gary.
I was gonna read that tonight. I'm just kidding.
Yep.
Take them.
Yeah. We'll give this one a here.
Okay.
Okay.
Then this one, Jay, one of these is yours?
Yeah.
So who are the copies
So
for?
we were going to, one to Brian, one to Gary, one to you.
Brian, just leave it right here.
Okay. Bonus part.
If one copy gets left with me, people can come in anytime, and I'll get you the electronic copy by tomorrow. All right? Oh, no, I have the electronic copy. I just have to get it out to them. But it's a big document, I know. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Can we go on to the next item? Sure. Okay. The next item on the agenda this evening, the third item was actually the approval of the contract amendment to Doran Whittier to conduct phase 2 of the work with us. I have not received the actual copy of the amendment back from the attorney's office yet, so it's at the committee's will at this point. I don't mind holding off this vote until the next meeting and have you vote and actually formally sign it. The only caveat is if someone is hesitant or really doesn't feel like this is the right thing to do, I would need to really kind of know now, because if we wait for the January meeting and then the committee decided that they didn't want to do this amendment, we'd have to change our thought process around January. So if it's more a matter of just having the document before you, which I totally understand, before executing, that's absolutely fine. I'll continue the work with Brad and his group to kind of firm up dates. If just anyone had any real apprehension or felt like at that January timeframe that you weren't going to be able to support this second phase of the work, it'd be much better for me to know now, just to be able to plan accordingly.
Anyone have concerns?
I don't.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think we should wait for the.
And I have absolutely no problem with that at all. I just don't have the formal document, but we'll do that. Like I said, I just wanted to know if there was going to be an issue. It'd be easy to know now. And I do think the work that they did was excellent. So that's going to be my Christmas reading, to be able to get caught up on the document. All right, so we're going to hold on that item. The next item on the agenda, this actually we pushed off from the last meeting. I'll do this relatively quickly, and we touched on a few of the different points this evening. I put together a report for you on the MSBA process that would be followed. And again, Jason spoke about this a little bit tonight, and I'll just bring you through the first phase of the work. And all of this literature was pulled from the MSBA website. I don't take credit for authoring this work, just pulling it together. So basically, what we're going to be looking to do, and the dates aren't even out for the spring yet, is select a master plan option that we ultimately incorporate into the statement of interest to the SBA. And what we're looking to try to do is get invited into the eligibility period. So if we apply in April, whatever the date ends up being with our submission, some point next fall, perhaps, early into the winter, what we're looking for is the SBA to actually get back to us and tell us that they've invited us into the eligibility period. That's the first phase of the work. So if you get invited into the eligibility period, so let's even for argument's sake, say it's a year from now that we get invited in, that kicks off this 270-day window where we have to basically hit all of these different milestones with the SBA in the hopes of ultimately getting out of the eligibility period and being invited into a feasibility study. So the feasibility study is the point in time where you technically enter the MSBA's pipeline for funding. Even if you get invited into the eligibility period or the eligibility phase, you're still not guaranteed to be invited into feasibility. But the first year is basically a lot of different compliance issues. So if you see on page 2 of the memo, if we actually do get invited into eligibility, we have to sign a compliance agreement with the SBA, basically indicating we know what rules that we're going to be operating under. We would need to form a school building committee to oversee the work of this project. We need to complete an educational data profile that would actually be used to help take a look at our school enrollments and make sure that we really can certify the need. We have to provide them with a summary of all of our existing district maintenance practices, because if they're going to participate in a school building project with us, they want to know, once they actually fund the project, that the town is going to properly maintain and care for the property. We have to actually do a formal design enrollment projection with the SBA. And then ultimately, we have to have there be a community vote, and I believe it's the school committee and the Board of Selectmen that would ultimately vote to just say, yes, we would like this project considered for the eligibility, eligibility to the feasibility study. So if you flip back to the first page of the document, the yellow chart, the little timeline, this walks you actually through the different steps. So the first box on the far left would be actually authorizing us into eligibility. And then you'd have the 30 days to do the compliance statement, 60 days to form the school building committee, up to 90 days to do the educational profile, and it just runs right down. Now, if you happen to get these items done prior to the 270 days, you absolutely can be considered by the SBA to be invited into feasibility sooner. You don't have to wait for the 270 days, but you absolutely cannot miss any of your benchmarks as you go through this 270-day project. So if it takes you longer to get a particular vote or to certify something, you basically can get kicked out and have to reapply the following year. So again, when we apply this April, just so everyone knows, nothing is a guarantee. Our hope is to be invited into eligibility, which then kicks off almost this year-long bit of work and whatnot. And at that point in time, we're still not guaranteed to be in their pipeline. We're asked to then be getting into feasibility. And at that point, when we get into feasibility, would be the phase where we're really committed to the project. And at that point in time, we actually have to commit some money to hire a designer, to hire a project manager, to start doing some of the preliminary documents and whatnot.
Jay, just for clarification so the public understands, what's our exposure up until that point for financing?
Your exposure originally for the submission in the springtime is really just the money that's already been dedicated towards phase 2 of the work. So it would just be the contract amount for Dorn Whittier and all of our internal work. There's no cost in that to get into the eligibility phase. When you get into the eligibility phase, at the very end is when you need to, if you've hit all your timelines and you're going to be invited into feasibility, it's at feasibility that you have to actually vote to authorize a portion of money that would be dedicated to like a designer, an architect, a project manager. So you're talking, with December of 16 now, if we get invited in December of 17, maybe December of 18 before the town actually would have to make any kind of a vote to commit any funds whatsoever. And then even at that point in time, that's minimal funds that are necessary.
Give me a small minimum fund I know it's difficult.
I don't want to be held to it, but we're talking hundreds of thousands as opposed to millions at that point. Just to be able to hire your specialist to work on plan design and plan review. And then that's probably another good year and a half. Could be even 2 years off as you're putting everything together before you have to have the big vote. That could easily be, December of 2019, 2020, before there's an actual real vote that happens. And then at that point, you're constructing your building, you're 2 to 3 years of construction time. Brings you to that 2023 timeframe.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks.
I won't go through every page of the report, but it is there. I just wanted to be able to provide it all to you so that it would be in one document if we ever have to refer back to the process. Okay? It's a lot of work ahead, but it's really fun work, and it's good work if we can see a nice project come out of this. All right, fifth item on the agenda this evening is approval of the principal employment agreement template. So this is something that I've actually been working on to try to streamline different contract language within the district. As you know, the vast majority of the employees in the district are covered by collective bargaining agreements. So, unions have terms and conditions with which they work. One of the things that I kind of inherited here in the district is all of our principals and a lot of our central office individuals are on individual contracts. And the terms and conditions within the contracts varied from agreement to agreement based on who put them together and at what time people came into the district. So I had done this in my previous district, and I think it's also helpful to be here today. I'd like to standardize the language within the principals' contracts, just so that the terms and conditions are uniform from one agreement to the other. And basically, under the statute, the selection of staff and the actual entering into the agreement with staff is under the purview of the superintendent. But I have to work within the terms and conditions that the school committee sets. So I've basically taken all of the different employment contracts that we have, come up with standard language that's uniform through all of them, and I would ask the school committee to actually vote to approve these terms and conditions, which would then again standardize the employment packages going forward for all of our principals in the district. I've worked with the principals in the district on this so that there's no surprises with them. And again, I think it's just a nice way to have some consistency from contract to contract and not have to be all over the place with language. So the committee is charged with approving the terms under which I can negotiate individually with the principals. And this is kind of the menu that I'm asking you to authorize for me.
2 questions. All the principals in our district have seen this template, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and they're happy with it? Any concerns?
No, we certainly have had some back and forth about language because, again, some principals might have something in their contract, another one doesn't. I think, I've also taken a look at language in other districts, and we've kind of come together on this template. I think it's fair and equitable, and it's something that I believe the principals agree with as well in principle, ironically. But I think it's a good step in the right direction to have there be some consistency among language.
Did you bounce it off legal?
Andy reviewed it as well.
Okay, all right.
To form. He doesn't get involved in specific provisions of the contract. Right. He provides the legal language review.
Got it. Okay.
You all done, Mike?
Oh, yeah, I have nothing.
Whoa.
What's that?
He's got nothing.
So the last
make a
sentence
motion
of
to adopt the recommended contract template for the principals employed by the Chelmsford Public Schools. Would that be accurate, Jay?
You good?
Thank you.
Second?
Second, sorry.
That's right. Motion made and seconded. Questions or further discussion? Hearing none. Vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any negative vote or abstention? None. Unanimous.
Nice job, Jay.
Thank you again. Just a move to
That's
kind
good
of
housekeeping, Jay.
streamline some things. The sixth item on the agenda this evening is kindergarten registration date. So this is going to be a hot topic as we enter the new year. Typically, we do kindergarten registration in January and April, but what we're recommending is actually pushing out the dates for kindergarten registration to February this year, so that they'll be the week right before February vacation. And the thought process behind this was really just to give us a little bit more time as we're formalizing the plans for the fall of 17, as we're working on budget, again, both in the school department and also with the town on the recommendation, continuing the work on the modulars, the design work that's all coming to fruition. We wanted to be able to come out after the first of the year and basically indicate, we are recommending and budgeting for a full-day program in the fall, and be very clear about, we've been taking in different questions from different people, almost put like an FAQ type sheet together that will help people walk through this transition year from part-time to full-time K, and this just gives us a few more weeks. And before we went too heavy with the posting of the dates, because again, some people have always done this in January, we just wanted to notify the committee we'd like a couple of extra weeks, but we'd like to really tomorrow start to hammer home on these dates so people can plan. And that'll also give us the Christmas week and first week in January to work together all the documentation and to really do a media blitz on promoting this. So more conveying those dates, making sure the committee doesn't have any significant problem with that. And we'll still do a second period in April. That won't be a problem. But we're just moving the January to February to give us a little bit more time. So.
How can we lose? It's Valentine's Day. Huh?
Also my
What's that?
birthday.
How can we lose? It's Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that.
It's my birthday too, so.
There you go. Well, I'm going to make a motion on that right now. Then.
Yeah.
So with that,
I'll be
Mr.
there,
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion in switching the kindergarten registration from January to February this year to allow additional time to formalize the announcement and provide the necessary notices to the families after the holidays. The proposed dates for the registration periods are as follows. February 14th, between 2017, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. February 15th, 2017, between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. February 16th, 2017, between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m.
Second.
Further discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any negative vote or abstention? None, unanimous.
Thank you. The seventh report of the evening is the continuation of our talk from the previous meeting around the FY18 capital plan recommendations. Excuse me, these are specific to technology. So actually, John is on the Technology Capital Advisory Committee.
Subcommittee? Committee or subcommittee?
I'm not sure, but it's a technology advisory committee that looks at all the different school and town IT projects that go forward for capital. And basically, there were 4 projects that came forward from school IT for this coming year for consideration. The first project was funding some network infrastructure upgrades. And one of the things that Bill Silver in the technology office and a lot of our technology staff are planning to work on is utilizing a different portion of E-rate funds that are available to us to actually do some of the network infrastructure upgrades. We can leverage and actually have 40% of our projects reimbursed through the government as part of the E-rate program. So basically, you have to identify a school at a time. You can't do work kind of across all schools. So we've identified for year 1, so if this went into effect, this would be done next year, to select the Parker Middle School for their network infrastructure. So we would soup to nuts. That would include, your wiring and switching and whatnot. And then what we also talked about is internally, taking out any of the good products or the good, say, switches and networking equipment at that particular school and being able to replace aging or out-of-life equipment at other schools. And so this is an item that you would actually see on the capital plan list, every year. And there might actually be some years where if we're doing elementary schools and the costs aren't quite as high, you might do 2 elementary schools in a year. But basically, E-rate allows you to have that, the network upgrade funding every 2 out of 5 years in a school cycle. So this would be a relatively constant you would see. This would also help to improve our wireless connectivity within the buildings. We'd be adding some different access points. The more and more devices that we're adding in the schools, whether it's Chromebooks or iPads or just even wireless laptops, the more strain it's putting on the network. So this will help us along those lines. And the 152.4 is actually net the amount of the full project. So that actually reflects the 40% discount already. Second project for the year was continuing to do the upgrades to the public address of the PA systems in the schools. This dollar amount is the same amount as last year. We're trying to tackle the McCarthy Middle School this year. If we're going to be doing a network upgrade at Parker Middle School next year, and we're going to be looking at different PA systems and different technologies to use, it would make sense to update the Parker at the same time. So then both of our middle schools would be current, and we may even be able to dip into some of the elementary schools at the same time. Bill, again, and the IT staff are still trying to resolve, which actually technology to incorporate into the buildings. There's some IT-based or technology that actually run over the infrastructure. There's also some analog systems that they're looking at, but that dollar amount is sufficient to be able to produce either. Third project was upgrades to security camera systems. This was $70,000. This particular year, it was to replace some of the exterior cameras at some of our schools. We have some old analog cameras at the buildings on the outside that don't produce the clearest picture. And again, when Bill and Matt and the police department took a look at our systems and our coverage, we already have the fixtures there, and we already have some wiring running to them. They're just not the most current cameras, so the display of the picture you're receiving isn't the best on the outside. So that would be a continuation of that program. The high school really received a significant upgrade last year with the funding, and they're making very good use of the additional cameras at the high school. And the last project was the continuation of the interactive classroom technology project. So this is the adding of the, some type of whiteboard, interactive projector, screen with speakers and whatnot for classroom technology. We had the capital plan meeting last Friday where we reviewed the building facility projects as well as these tech projects. The feedback that we got from the tech group, and this is going to have to be kind of a discussion for the committee, I think based on whatever the final results of the recommendations of the group are to town meeting. There's some concern among some of the members that a couple of the projects, say the security upgrade or even the 21st century classrooms in particular, where they're seeing that same dollar amount every year, is a question about should that really, if we're going to be spending that kind of money, and I don't think anyone is saying we shouldn't spend that kind of money on those projects, should it be an operational budget item or should it be a capital budget item? And one of the things that, I get that, but we kind of pushed back a little bit on and just indicated that, it's not like we actually have significant operational budget line items for these now, and utilizing the town's capital budget for this has been the way we've been able to fund these projects. If there was going to be a change or a divergence from that, we'd really just need to think about how to incorporate those into the operating budget. I think, Sal actually brought up, it could put us in a position of actually just having to ask for more in operating as opposed to capital. And, that these are distinct projects. It's not that, unfortunately, even on the interactive, say, classrooms, this number has been there for, 8 or 10 years, but we're still not all the way through the district. It's not that we're trying every year to refresh the same classrooms. We're adding on to new rooms that don't have things. When it comes to the security cameras, there's going to be cameras every year that go down that we're going to want to replace, or now that we actually have some internal cameras in our elementary and middle schools, this past summer, they all had entryway cameras put in, so you can actually see, the front door, and you can see down the hallways of each of the schools, but we don't have cameras deeper into the buildings, which is going to bring up another talk for us, because I think we're going to have to, kind of talk and plan about what level of internal building, camera coverage do we want to have? How do we use the cameras? Is it, proactive or reactive? So there's a lot of work that needs to go into that. But I think the big concern that I heard from the group is more, I don't think, again, questioning the project itself, but questioning the funding stream. And should it be an operational cost or should it be a capital cost? So those discussions obviously will continue to happen. The capital planning committee will meet again the first Friday in January, when they'll actually take up in totality the town's total list of capital projects, and I provided that to you on the second page of this list. It's just listed in order, not in priority order. That total $3.5 million. And what I did also, the next 4 pages are basically just a little breakdown for you of the IT from the school department's projects. And then lastly, for a conversation starter, I added the 4 technology projects onto that spreadsheet of school department related capital projects for FY18. And I just rank order them myself, in kind of recommended order. Again, the town typically funds about $3 million a year in capital. I think last year it was maybe 3.1. It's going to be in that ballpark somewhere. But when we get to that capital meeting, again, everyone's kind of competing for resources. I just wanted the school department the school committee to weigh in on kind of priorities and projects and whatnot. So this would be the order that I would, kind of recommend them going forward in. The last page, Al, sorry. No, there's another page. Yeah, I think it's, no, this one. Oh, you don't have it. It's that page there. But just want to open it up for discussion and feedback. And again, I think based on the outcome of that meeting on the 6th, I'll bring back feedback to you as we're really starting to get into in January our budget planning for next year, and to have that discussion about, should some of these items, should we try to work them into the operating budget and then not have them be dependent on, the capital budgeting every year, depending on what kind of feedback we're getting from that committee.
Could you tell me what the radio amplifier system for the high school is? It's under police.
That's the police department had requested to add an amplifier system because they're having trouble with their portable radios when they're in the high school, being able to pick up it's a signal amplifier, like a repeater within the building. They don't have a good connection. There's some dead spots in the high school.
That I know.
Right.
Okay.
Meetings with the police department, you said Bill and Matt?
Bill and Matt.
Matt, met with the how do they feel about the camera budget? Are they comfortable with that? Do they want more? Are they looking to be more aggressive with getting cameras in place?
I think the hot thing, all these items, we want more. It's not just a matter of, should we do more security cameras and less something else? These are almost kind of the minimums that we need to be spending in those areas. And, again, we did do a significant upgrade at the high school this past summer. The high school really is in very good shape. I think now going back to look at the elementary schools, and it's really the exteriors. And
Right.
this was coming largely from the police perspective, as far as, if they
Vandalism.
did. Well, that, but also like if they wanted to see a car come up to the building or an intruder, if they want to be able to have outside coverage of who's approaching the property.
How come no doors on the budget?
The
They've always
doors-
been like on top of doors.
Yeah, no, they're there. It's number 2. They were listed, I'm sorry, it's number 3. They were listed under,
security system
the facilities, not technology. They came in under buildings.
Okay, it's just
So,
moved out of technology. Are they swipe doors?
No, they're not swipe doors. This is at McCarthy,
Yeah.
under doors and hardware. We didn't budget for any additional swipes for next year.
Okay.
This is replacing, within the interior of the building, in the
Okay.
exterior, the key locks
Yeah.
on the door, so we can have a unified keying system.
Okay.
Right now, if you saw the ring of keys that people have to carry around the building, it's a little bit crazy. So that, and also adding locks to doors that don't have locking capability in a lockdown situation.
Okay.
I think what's important too, Jay, one of the takeaways I had is when we go in front of the committee again, just to have a plan of exactly, and a budget. I think in the past, under the previous administration, they just created a number as a placeholder, and it was a little ambiguous, they didn't know where it was gonna land, so they just placed, and it seemed to be the same number all the time, as you know. So I think what we need to do in the future is be a little bit more definitive. Exactly what are we looking for?
Right.
And we heard that loud and clear, and I think our team feels very comfortable in putting something together, so it's not just an arbitrary number. This is how much we need, this is what we're going to do with it. Would you agree?
No, I agree, and even when we go back on that 6th, we'll have specificity around these particular numbers for this particular year. And what Bill and Matt and the rest of the IT people can do around the tech projects is really, when they select a particular technology or a particular way they're going to tackle a project, we can then go out with the vendors and actually have them
That's right.
give us the quotes to do all the other schools. And we can actually bring those hard numbers, and they want a plan. They
That's
want to see, 1
Have a
year,
plan
2
and
years,
manage
3
the
years
plan.
out,
That's right.
what we're actually doing. And I get the sense, perhaps on a school project, but in other department projects too, that they don't like when from year to year, if you anticipating next year doing X, and all of a sudden you come in with a Y, it throws off the planning. So they want to see you have a plan, and then stick to that plan, and we can do that for next year.
Yeah, and I also feel, and one of the other takeaways I had, Jay, was if you ask for X number of dollars, we'd like to see you spend that.
Right.
With no leftover, or, we didn't get a chance to, or we're going to give you X number of dollars for that fiscal year, we need to spend it. So
Right.
I think with this administration, with this team, I don't see a problem with that, so.
And I agree with you, and I think that's where the specificity around the budgeting will come in.
Yeah.
And that if we actually, we'll be able to pre-do all of this work for next year, pre-do all the quotes, and have the projects really ready to run as soon as the funding is approved.
I think the quotes will go a long way.
Yeah.
And I think if we can get our vendors to help put those quotes together, I think that'll go a long way with the explanation, as opposed to one of the other suggestions was, why don't we hire an independent consultant to come in and tell us exactly. I just think I don't think we need to spend any more money. I think we can let our vendors, give us an idea of what's needed, and then we can use that as a template back and forth to shop it out a little bit. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, good.
It sounds like you're mostly on the right track. Traditionally, the explanation for why we were asking for a set dollar amount in technology had been that we were trying to do two things. One was that we weren't prepared to do all of the schools in a single year. It's a question of manpower. It's also, in some cases, a question of the underlying technology, the infrastructure there at the school. So we were trying to do it in pieces. The other part was we were trying to be respectful of the other departments and recognizing that that it's still a single pot of money, even on the capital budget. That said, I think if you're bringing in specific quotes for specific schools on technology, there shouldn't be an issue with that.
Right.
I think technology, classroom technology might be a little bit different animal, and maybe we should take a look at that. I think the first thing to say is that we can't just absorb that number, and there'll have to be discussions, I think, between you and the town manager about if it's coming off of the capital budget, how is it going to get into the appropriated budget?
Right.
In the past, a lot of that money's been going to the whiteboards, and again, the explanation for why we weren't doing the entire school or the entire system at a time was we needed to train teachers to be ready to use it. And so I think if you can show that there's a waiting list of teachers who have done the PD and are ready to use a whiteboard, that's one thing. I think the thing maybe that has changed is that I get the sense we're slowly moving away from the whiteboards being the only kind of content delivery system in the classrooms. Not everybody likes the whiteboard. Some people would prefer just the overhead projector, something like that, that's maybe a little bit more flexible. And that's the sort of thing where you're always chasing the game there, right? That number isn't going to go away. We are going to need to make investments in technology for the schools for the foreseeable future. And I think there maybe is an argument to be made that should be in the appropriated budget as opposed to the capital budget. But again,
But it's not there right now.
we can't do it
We gotta figure out how to do it.
unilaterally. So that'll take some additional discussions. But yeah, in the meantime, I would agree, if you can go in with a specific list of items this year for that technology and show them how they're going to be used, and especially if we have people who are trained
Right.
and waiting for the technology to kind of unlock their training, that would go a long way towards showing that we're ready to put it to good use.
I agree.
One concern I have, and it has to do with the Chromebooks, and I think that came out in the letter that I read earlier. We're having gaps in internet connectivity around the district. And Chromebooks have to have internet to work. They're bricks without it. What are we doing to address those, black holes in our district? I've met with that teacher over at Harrington, and they've got a classroom of kids who they have Chromebooks and can't use them because they don't have wireless over there in certain pockets.
Right.
And it's the same over at Center. It's you hear it all over the district.
Right.
Some spots in the high school. What are we doing to make sure that we're using the system we already have in place to utilize the technology that we've purchased?
Yeah.
We're doing big improvements on wireless. One of the things, Bill, during the meeting, the committee meeting, we discussed was the schools, when you implement wireless, schools are big radio blockers, so they stop all the signals. So one of the things Bill wants to do is have an access point in every room, which would help a lot. I know in terms of the internet, though, I mean, we have redundant paths, we have multiple circuits. It's probably just the wireless. We just don't have enough access points in the buildings.
Right, but that's, I mean, is that included in our network infrastructure as a district, not just Parker Middle School?
Not just Parker, right.
Well, two things. So I agree, that's largely the point. I mean, we do have some outdated wiring too, even for hard wiring, but the biggest issue we're having now, whether it's a Chromebook or if it was an iPad or a laptop, whatever the different like state testing we're gonna do,
Right.
has to be able to remotely connect to the internet. So I mean, that's a
Absolutely.
huge issue for us. Really, up until a couple of years ago, the vast majority of computing in the district really took place in the individual either computer labs that were dedicated,
Desktops.
or you have a couple of computers in a room, but they're hardwired to the internet.
Right.
They're not connecting on the wireless. A lot of our classrooms, you know, you'll actually have a wireless access point either inside the classroom or out in the hallway, but then you skip a classroom and you do the next one. But when we're actually putting, say, 25 or 30 devices in a room, there's just not enough, I forget the word, but like bandwidth, or there's not enough connectivity, basically,
Yeah.
to those machines. So what Bill and the IT guys have been doing for right now is if they do put like a mobile cart out there, they are buying extra access points to specifically kind of go with that cart.
Yeah.
So they're moving and helping with that connectivity. At Parker, like next, so if this project is approved, it would be like a whole new wireless system for the building. And you would, as John indicated, you'd be putting wireless access points in every classroom, which would be a huge, huge help. We just don't have the funding or even the manpower it comes down to say, do all your buildings at the same time.
Right.
So we are gonna have to kind of do some patchwork to the existing buildings to just at least be able to, every time we buy new devices, add enough access points to support those devices. We're gonna have to kind of do that as we go.
Another complaint I'm hearing is that in order to use the Chromebook, you have to take the entire cart. Some teachers just want to have one or two.
Yep.
And they have to take the whole cart in their classroom, and they feel like, you know, that's overkill.
Mhm.
Is there anything we can do to accommodate a teacher who just wants one or two?
Yeah, and again, I would think, I mean, the simple answer would be yes. I don't know why that's the case.
I don't either. It just seemed like it did some,
Sounds like a principal decision, maybe.
I don't know.
To be honest with you, without knowing more, I would guess that they're in the cart because they're secure, that's where they charge to, and basically teachers are probably signing in and signing out the cart as they use it. As we start to integrate more of these into the buildings, I can see us getting in a situation where we're either out of the lab or the library, you know, there's just kind of bundles of them where a teacher could take out 2 or 3 or
Okay.
4. But it's probably just more of
As
a
long as it's on
security
the
and a
radar
control type
and,
thing.
you know, you're sensitive to the fact that some of these teachers don't want the whole cart.
They don't need the whole cart.
Yeah, they
No,
just
I
want
get
one or two,
that.
and they have to take
I
the
just
whole-
don't think we have enough,
Okay.
like, of the individual ones right now to even be breaking them up. But it certainly makes a lot of sense.
So the only other thing is, what do you think about flipping 8 and 9 on your priority list, which would be the security system upgrade and the accordion wall replacement at CHS? Everything else makes sense to me. Most of the items above there are either safety things or, in the case of Center, this may be the only chance we get to get in there this summer.
Yeah, I guess when I looked at the list, you know, number 1, the abatement, 2, the fountains, you know, 3 was the safety, 4, the plumbing upgrade. Such a big number that if you drop it down,
Right,
it's just
gotta-
not gonna
gotta do
happen.
it.
This is the summer to do Center if we were ever going
Have
to.
It's so crowded otherwise.
The network infrastructure upgrade,
Safety again.
well, then we have to get them into the
Yep.
cycle, right? It's gotta be like an every year thing. The PA system address, I think, has to get in there.
Safety.
The 65,000 for the accordion doors has just been like falling off the list for so
Yeah.
long. I, to be honest with you, hope that we don't get that far up the list where either come into contention. But I had just kind of had it up there because it has just sat there for so long, that it really is
Yeah.
bothersome to the classrooms that have that accordion wall.
Okay.
And I was thinking, you know, worst case scenario, the security system, it's not enhancing inner building security, it's certainly enhancing outside. But I just don't want, and again, it was a personal thing, I just didn't want to see that accordion wall
Yeah.
keep getting dropped. And the others just kind of, you know, fell in place. Like I said, I hope again we don't get to that point, but, you know, that was my thought.
Okay.
So,
Vote, you just did form the
um, if, well, it would actually probably help with
I
that committee.
think we need to.
If you would vote to,
It'll set the stage for town meeting, yeah.
yeah, just vote to
They
approve
actually
the
wanted
recommendation,
that.
yeah.
So, with a little help over here, I'd like to make a motion that we incorporate the 4 technology-related capital projects into the overall 2018 capital plan project spreadsheet with the recommended priority.
Second.
Can I make a friendly amendment?
Oh, sorry.
We should have the total amount in there.
Oh, good point. You just want the total, you want the breakdown?
The total is sufficient usually.
It's 1.7 something.
Yeah, 417,4.
417,400.
Oh, no,
No,
you
no,
want
no,
the-
1795061
yeah.
is the recommended.
1750761.
1795061.
Second as amended.
Any further discussion or question? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
No negative vote or abstention? None.
Thank you.
We took item 8 out of order already, so we're all done. Oh, yes. If the committee would indulge me, after we set the agenda for Friday night, a trip came over for the high school hockey team. They have an opportunity to go away over the Christmas break, and it's just down to the Cape in Falmouth, but it's an overnight trip on Tuesday the 12/27 to Wednesday 12/28. So I would ask for a suspension of the rules to be able to take that item, which isn't on the agenda, up this evening for approval, because we won't have an opportunity to come back and approve that before the field trip. So could we have a motion to suspend the rules to take that item
The hockey team.
on the agenda?
I make a motion that we suspend the rules, which in relation to the hockey team, to the next agenda.
Yep. And then a motion to approve the hockey team's request to attend an ice hockey tournament on December 27th and 28th in Falmouth.
I make a motion that we accept the hockey team's new 27th and 28th, you said?
Yes.
Dates in Falmouth.
Second.
So we should suspend first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll vote on suspension. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any negative or abstention? None. Okay, now on the motion for the trip itself. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Does anyone have any liaison report that should be brought forward at this time? Okay. Just one thing I wanted to mention, in talking with Jay, we didn't put the work on goals, our goals on this agenda because it was already packed, and the agenda coming into January is very thin, so it made sense to hold it.
We'll put that on for the first meeting in January.
Anything else that needs to?
For the to-do list, I would like an answer to what the current graduation requirements are with documentation for
Yeah,
the next
follow up on
meeting.
that for you. What was the specific thing that you saw?
I'll send you the link to the minutes.
said you
and
emailed me?
The minutes and the presentation from 2012, we adopted the Mass Core requirements as presented. That means 30 credits in arts, and the Mass Core adjustment was that 10 had to be in fine or performing. That's what I can find. We voted on, we adopted. And it's reflected in the program of studies for the following year or two. And then, all of a sudden, another requirement that 5 have to be in practical arts shows up in the programs of studies, but I cannot find any documentation in the minutes
So it's not
showing
5,
that vote.
it's not 5 additional.
Project, what project would you pick?
They broke it up.
Well, so you could, if you did 4 years of band, you would have 40 credits.
Yep.
Right? What the kids are being told now is that in addition to those 40 credits, they still have to have another 5 credits in a practical art.
John.
And I think that's not correct. That's not what the committee voted.
Okay.
Board of Selectmen will not agree.
I'll look that up and we'll give you a report for the next meeting.
I'll send you what I've got.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
could send
I
that,
did
that
see
would
your
be
email.
great.
I saw your email. It was after the fact, but I did see it. I know, no, I just pulled it up. So we'll report on that for the next meeting for you.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Questions from the press?
Aye.
Questions?
Unanimous.
Questions from the press?
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Thank you.
John,
We just are waiting.
Mike?